What is up, everyone? Welcome back to AOS R&D. Super excited. We've got Matthias Krushel. Am I pronouncing that right, Matthias?
Crucial.
Crucial. See, like
Like the
you're
normal word.
like you're
There
crucial
you
to
go.
the life of this podcast. But
Oh, am I? You got the first name right, though. That's typically the difficult one that nobody really gets right.
I never. Yeah, yeah. We have a friend who like refuses to pronounce it correctly. he like he's been. I won't call him out, but he's been on the freaking. What do you call it? Anyway, um, yeah. I've never said your last name out loud. I've only like ever gone. Hey, is it
Oh.
okay to put it in the battle reports and stuff like that, right?
hmm
Um, uh, so
But anyways,
so a couple of housekeeping things. I'm sorry we're a couple minutes late. Hi, Sean. Welcome. We're talking about Skaven today. Matthias came in second at the grand finals in New Mexico with Mother Grainhorn Rat effing Skaven. Uh,
keep
something
it
that like
PG.
that's like almost like, and I said this to him beforehand, and we're both on the same page, so no one misunderstand. But we, I said this. Matthias didn't say this. Okay, just to be clear, like
Okay.
a lot of the reactions from you getting second is overshadowing the guy who got first,
Hmm.
which is which is insane, right? Like it's like he got first, but he did it with Seraphon. Now, as Matthias, you pointed out, what did you say? Here, I'll let you say it
hmm
because you said it.
Oh, I mean, I'm just saying that Dean's Seraphon list is a very unique take on Seraphon that I hadn't seen anywhere else.
Yes.
And that was a large contributor to why he was able to beat me twice. One, he's a really good player who's
Yep.
very good at the game.
Yep.
Two, I had really just no idea what I was supposed to do. I tried different things both times I played against him, and neither of them worked out.
Yeah, you can't plan for it if like you know what I mean. Like you get one practice game against it essentially when he beat you the first time, and then right.
Right.
So hey Keith, hey Dan, welcome. Um, yeah, so yeah, Coatl's Claw is super. It's super unusual, and he had like Saurus Cavalry in there and Saurus Warriors, or like two things.
25 of them.
Yeah, it's two things you just never see. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So the second piece of housekeeping is I almost canceled the stream because I have a gastro disorder, and it decided that right before we went live, it's just like, hey, this is happening.
Yeah.
So I'm really sorry. I might have to hit the eject button on the stream and literally just like almost no warning, run out of the room screaming for whatever reason. But we are here. We're live. We're going to cover the basics, and then if necessary, we'll do a two-parter where Matthias has said he'd be kind enough to come back tomorrow and answer everyone's questions. But first up, the thing that we always do is we kind of look at the rumor engine. It's actually interesting for once. It hasn't been interesting. What
Yeah, this is very pretty heavily clearly in AOS land
I
or
think
Warcry
so.
land.
Yeah. So Eric said he thought it was Beastmen.
Oh, that's, you know what? I think that's probably the safest pick.
That I mean, he knows Beastmen. He's had.
He knows Beastman. Yeah, it's all dinged up. It has the bumps in it everywhere. It has, I don't know, those two rings at the bottom look a little. I mean, that's like a little addition, but I feel like that's a Beastman kind of addition,
Yeah.
giving piercings to your shield.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know too much about it, but it's got the Chaos Star and it's super ratty and beat up looking. Or not ratty, you know what I mean. We are talking about Skaven. Alex,
Got
quit
something on the
quit lying
mind,
in
I
the
see.
chat. Alex is spreading false allegations against you in the chat. Um,
That's right. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just kind of showed up.
Matthias has proven Alex, okay? He's proven himself with a
That's
low
right.
tier army, no less, okay? I've got the Skaven in the background again. This is going to be great. So we've covered that, and then I just wanted to point out something that has nothing to do with Skaven or competitive Age of Sigmar, but they put up an article on the new Warcry like setting and whatnot, and it was so cool, man. Like I'm super jazzed for this new box. Like a Slan starship crashes and it just like warps everything and time, and yeah, it's really
Ooh.
cool. So that's really awesome. So now that that is done, uh,
Mhm.
Matthias, you went down to New Mexico for the grand finals. To get
Yes.
there, you had to uh, win either best general or best overall at
Mhm.
an open tournament in the states, right?
At one of the open tournaments or LVO Nova, actually maybe not LVO, but one of the big ones in the US as well, or the London GT, or there were some at-large people who, through whatever, I don't actually know how at-large people were chosen in the slightest, but there were people who were chosen at large.
That's
There
interesting.
were there were other very good players like Tom Guan and Emma Mangles.
Nice.
Although I believe we know why Emma Mangles got the invite because of the whole snafu with how LPO
Right.
scoring went.
Right. Yes, that's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Way back then,
I
right?
forgot about that. Yeah, there was like a whole big
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it was kind of like, well, to make it so it wasn't kind of an awful
Yeah, not
situation.
taking away the ticket.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad that they did that. Actually, I actually thought that was in 40K for
Hmm.
some reason, but um,
Nah, yeah, she got best. She for a brief moment had gotten best overall with her triple Rotbringer sorcerer Nurgle list.
nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that was another interesting looking list that just shows that you got it. If you're a good enough player, you can take plenty of different things and do well.
It's true. It really is true. Like you can win even before like a bunch of armies got bumps. There was someone out there with every army that was over 80% win rate, which is really impressive. And I think our own Dale was one of the people kind of contributing to that, like with Gits, like kind of knocking them up. Um,
Oh man,
Alex,
Gale is a
Skaven are
legend.
below 50% win rate on every single list. Okay, that's all I gotta say. And Dan wins with them every time. Exactly. What more needs to be said? They're too
I will
powerful.
say, Skaven's low tier win rate might just be a consequence of it being a popular army, or
Yep,
people's old tier armies, like how Stormcast can suffer in its win rate just because a lot of people play it.
it's true.
And also, I feel like there there isn't a lot. Well, it's hard to say. I'm not actually very in touch with the Skaven community, but I don't know how much list creativity there is beyond taking 6 Storm Fiends in the terms of going to tournaments with Skaven lists. Like usually, I see 6 Storm Fiends everywhere, or 9 Storm Fiends.
I mean, yeah, I think I think Storm Fiends are a trap, and I don't think they are.
I think it holds them back. It's a very powerful unit,
It
and
is.
I'm not surprised to see them 5-0, but I'm also expect them to 4-1 more often than not because they do have a few things that will just hard counter them, like the horror gas and taking a
Yeah.
bit of like losing 2 models when the horror gas is out
Oh
can just
man.
clear out the unit.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. They've always suffered for that, but yeah, and there're just so many points. Don't have a leader unit. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it goes on. Um, so you
Well,
did
they're elite.
you did not have um, you did not have any Storm Fiends in your list.
Nope.
You did have some of the more unusual parts of. Actually, here I'll bring up your list. Minor detail.
Yeah,
So
for
so
sure.
first I will put away this boop, and then I will bring up. Nope, that's the wrong thing. I have the Skaven PDF in case we want to reference it. So this
Mhm.
is Matthias's list. So first of all, actually, you want to get into the grand finals. You actually won with Nurgle. We should point that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So the a little bit of a overview is, in, when was it, July?
Yep.
Went to the US Open Seattle, and I brought a borrowed Nurgle army that I borrowed models from 3 different people. It was a Glotkin list, but Nurgle was new enough at the time that I think Glotkin was especially powerful because he requires a very specific playstyle, or you need to really know how he works in order to beat him. And you can get creative to counter him, but when he's new, you still have to figure that part out.
Yep.
So I was able to 5-0 with that army, and that's what me and Matt Beasley, the other 5-0 of that event, who also had a very beautiful painted armory, were the 2 people that qualified from the US Open Seattle. And that's what gave us the golden ticket, or a free trip to the New Mexico grand finale.
Did they call it a golden ticket?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I have the golden ticket. I can go grab it and give it to you. All right.
You got a Willy Wonka ticket? I agree, Dan. I actually think that they're better, that kits are better than sort of originally thought.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard me or not, but yeah, you got a Willy Wonka ticket. You kind of have to.
It is. I'm pretty sure that has to be what it is.
Right?
I keep it in the back of this picture frame.
Oh, that's so cool.
Ticket.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's got nothing on the back, but it's just this little golden cardboard kind of looking ticket, and it says literal golden ticket,
like,
right?
Is it like, does it look like gold, or is it like a goldenish color? Like, is it?
It's like a gold paint kind of look.
But like, is it like metallic? Or is it more like an orangey golden hue of non-metallic metal?
It's got paint flecks. It's like a true metallic metal
paint.
Okay,
cool. I wasn't sure if it was shiny or not. On your camera, it doesn't look shiny. That's why.
Yeah, it's very faintly shiny.
Fair enough. Well, you know.
It was a fun little keepsake.
Spared no expense, right? Gold adjacent, Keith says. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, that's so cool. I actually didn't know about the actual golden ticket.
Yeah.
So walk us through. So you said if Skaven get a book ahead of time, you're taking Skaven. Like, you announced that well before. As soon as you won the tournament with Nurgle, you actually said if and when Skaven get a book, you're gonna.
The only reason I took Nurgle actually was because Skaven was in the dumps and OBR was in the dumps, and those are my 2 armies that I have painted and I play a lot. And so I was just hoping to God, or the Great Horned Rat, whichever one you prefer, that a new book would come out in time, and I'd for sure play that. I was pretty sure it would come out, but I really wanted to play one of my 2 main armies, and so Skaven got a new book, and they're also a great toolbox army, which was additionally very helpful for the event.
Yep.
Just because the way that the event was set up is it's a double knockout tournament, which means we seed against each other. Well, the matchups are seeded, and you keep playing until at least one, or at most one person has less than 2 losses. That's a weird way to say it.
As soon as you lose twice, you're out.
Yeah.
It's traditional double elimination, a la, like, it's very popular in the fighting game community, so they're almost always double elimination. Okay, but before we go into that, why don't you walk us through your list? Because that's the main thing everyone asks about. Right. Like, no one cares about. They just assume everything is in the list, but which is not true. Yeah. As you'll see on here, like, you actually have a couple of things that no one freaking takes. Now, Thanquol is not one of them, but please extol us, about your list. Yeah, could you explain your list and why you took each thing, if possible?
So part of what I was getting at with the double knockout tournament was, in addition to that, they were telling us who we were fighting, and everyone had to submit their factions 2 weeks out and then submit their lists 1 week out. Wow. Therefore, you would know not only your game 1 opponent, but you would also see the full bracket. So in your next game would be the winner of this X battle. And so I would be starting with Caleb Walters and then either playing Darren Watson or Gavin Krygard, depending on who won
Yep.
their match off. And so you can actually just map out who your opponents are. I was expecting to go 1 and 2, and therefore I was hoping to go 1 and 2. Therefore, I was generally focusing on, if I was going to have any kind of flex pieces or spare points to spend in my list, I wanted to focus on making it good against Tzeentch first and foremost, because Caleb Walters is a really good and one-trick Tzeentch player. And 2, playing against Daughters of Cain or Khorne, because those were Darren and Gavin's armies. Gavin with the Daughters of Cain and Darren with the Khorne. So what that meant was from my previous lists, I could take the core of the things that I liked, and then I would try and add in the other things around it. Really, all that meant was me taking the giant rat punch piece, which is the rarer part that you see. But the list starts with a core that I find the most valuable, for sure. Thanquol, of course, because he's +2, +3 to unbind, +3 to cast, +3 to dispel, double caster, double unbinder. He can also get Death Frenzy, which is very important for the giant rats.
Yep.
And
he's +4 near a Nahul.
+4 near Nahul, which is all too important against Tzeentch. That's the main one, is against Tzeentch. It means I can compete with the Lord of Change or Kairos, whichever it might end up being, in terms of casting. He's a 2 and 2 setup, 2 Warpfire Braziers, 2 Warpfire Projectors, just because that's what I've been doing since the book came out. And I've tried out going 4 Warpfire Projectors before, but every time I've done it, I've hated it, because I really rely on him having a melee threat so he can compete in as many phases as he can. He's great in the hero phase with his casting, great in the shooting phase, because he'll still pick up, on average, a unit of 1 wound models. And then he can still fight whatever's behind, or fight whatever he rolled low on with his Warpfire Projectors. And the big thing I find is it still forces out a redeploy from your opponent to get away from that 8-inch range on the Warpfire Projectors, which would happen regardless of whether you have 4 or 2 of them. But he can still fight in combat, so he can still get value outside of that. It also means your opponent still has to really respect the Unleash Hell from 2 Warpfire Projectors. It doesn't really change the decision-making between that, whether you have 2 or 4. And so, for the most part, if your opponent's going to be able to play around it, they're going to play around it whether you have 2 or 4. But at least if you have 2 melee weapons, you can kill a hero behind actually more reliably, because it's 3s and 3s instead of the rest of his profile, which is 4s and 3s to hit and wound. And so that's Thanquol. Of course, with Laoshan the Soulseeker, because that combo is the best. My favorite term for it, I heard from Ridge from Season of War. He calls it Thanquol's skateboard, and I love the idea of him skating around. So that's what I call it.
He's always had a skateboard, though. That's his base. It's so small.
It's true. He's on such a tiny base, and that's what makes Laoshan all the better.
Actually, that's the only reason why he can even teleport himself, is because it literally barely fits in the radius there.
Well, there's one base size bigger that fits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Spirit of Dearth base is
really
the 110 by 92 will fit.
What? I didn't know that. I actually thought that. Okay, that's good to know.
And then the next piece of the list was the Verminlord Deceiver. He is such a perfect utility piece. I'm always split whenever I make a list between whether I take a Warbringer or a Deceiver, but I almost always have at least one, or even a Verminlord. He's the third option too, but usually one of those 3. I always want to have a Verminlord. The big value that they can create, the Warbringer has the biggest damage output on so reliable with a 12-inch base movement, so he's just amazing if you need to punch something out of existence. The Wartnaw is the best one to talk about third. The Deceiver is hypermobile because he can teleport anywhere outside of 6 inches of an enemy. He's not targetable by missile weapons outside of 9 inches, which
Incredible.
is a very important
Uh-huh.
number.
Yep.
That means you can't deep strike and shoot him,
Yep.
and if you just move into range, he can redeploy out of range of
Yep.
your shooting.
Yep.
So you have to. So he's really difficult to get shots on unless he's the one going into your range purposefully.
Yep.
And then the standard artifact that's an auto take on him, the Shadow Magnet Trinket, which is the once per battle. At the start of a combat phase, you pop it, and you get always strikes first until your next hero phase. So it'll last through an enemy's double turn. It's just like how Bellacor's Dark Master lasts.
Yep.
But it always strikes first is very important because that means he can use the Scurry Away ability to retreat. You've talked about this before in the Skaven book.
We did, and you have used it in several battle reports on the channel. The one thing I would like to ask about here at this juncture, so when it came out, you and I talked a lot about the Deceiver, right? And you pointed out to me the power of the Shadow Magnet Trinket. Like, I was with, like I saw the value in that was like one of the first ones I went to, but what you pointed out to me was the combo of that and incredible agility, meaning
Oh,
and so like you like so I always liked the Deceiver. I always thought he was one of the better ones in the new book, but that combo specifically, like I was just like, you can't stop him. Like, that's 2 turns of the game. Where you just can't stop him.
He just is safe.
He's
for the
just
most part.
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's very corner cases where you can get around it, basically by surrounding enough board space that there's nowhere to retreat, even from 12 inches and flying.
Yeah. And there are a few things that can
I
teleport.
say.
That's true. And there are a few things that can teleport in and really just and shoot them. I think
There's
like Stormcast can.
And there's one Stormcast can't teleport in and shoot him because they can only teleport outside of 9. I mean, unless you're deep striking with the Lord Imperator.
Right.
But that's I've never actually seen that. That would be a really specific counter to just the Deceiver because it has almost no value anywhere else.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Right. So you'd never have to worry about seeing something like that.
Yeah, I feel like I agree. But so you have Devious Adversary, which is kind of like the sort of, it was sort of the one that everyone was taking originally, and then you were a bit of a pioneer with Incredible Agility to a certain extent.
To be fair, I never came up with the idea of Incredible Agility Shadow Magnet Trinket. I didn't even realize that you could use Shadow Magnet Trinket and Scurry Away right away.
Oh, really?
That was all things I learned from the AOS coach video, where he was talking with. I'll have to pull up his name. But
right,
he had that great idea of like always jumping away. So, and I don't hate the Incredible Agility Shadow Magnet Trinket build. The double Finest Hour means even if you are within shooting range, you can save stack through whatever it is.
Exactly.
And flying means you can always get away from. It's all the more difficult to counterplay the Shadow Magnet Trinket runaway combo. But the reason he has Devious Adversary is because the list needs that much more punch. Because if it's not going to have a Warbringer to just instantly delete things, then I need the extra attacks to put out the extra damage I need to pick up a hero more reliably, or to kill 10 melee snakes in combat, or to pick up, hopefully, almost an entire unit of blues in one go. Like a Stomp plus combat should maybe do the full 20 damage to a unit of 10 blues that was just summoned. Right? These kinds of things that I'll be running into in the game.
For sure.
Also, I don't trust 6 attacks to kill a Bloodthirster, but I would trust 8 attacks to kill a Bloodthirster.
Yeah.
You just need the higher volume.
Thanks, Dan, for showing up. Appreciate it. And we really like having you here. I know it's late for you. Keith, I do like your headcanon of the Deceiver always making a dramatic entrance. Meaning there wasn't enough poison left for their stiletto. That's funny. And it should be pointed out too that, like, is there another spell for the Deceiver other than Flaming Weapon? Like,
you can't. He
Like
has to take flaming
2
weapon.
damage? Get
Damage
out of here.
2
Yeah.
hurts so much.
Yeah.
When he ever fails his flaming weapon, it just craters his output so much. He can still do things like, killing support heroes, but
Yeah.
especially against Seraphon with the -1 damage already, or Heart of Fury, or just if you're trying to kill a unit, you need the extra damage in order to get enough output to get you there.
For sure. And you didn't take cogs because it went up, I guess, to make him more reliable in the casting?
I don't need cogs. As much as you really want it, he's going to leave the range of cogs the moment they're set up.
It's true,
Someone
but it's
casts it
just so
and you
he
just
can get
teleport
in
to one.
there, like in case he double ones or, rolls a 3
Well,
or
for
something.
the charge, he can just re-roll the charge, right?
No, I
It
mean
would
for
be
the
cast.
for this his spells.
Oh, just miscasts?
Yeah.
It's the other thing about it is he can do other things even if he does fail flaming weapon. You just have to shift gears in your strategy.
That's
It
fair.
becomes, all right, he's not trying to deal damage now. Now you just walk him up the board, or if he still gets his teleport off, teleport him up the board and use the always strikes first runaway portion of his kit. You try and take up board space and blank a combat that looks too juicy for your opponent to ignore.
Love it. Yep, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the engineer, Vial of the Fulminator.
Yeah, so moving on with the rest of the list. Those 2 monsters, I love. I played that combo once before at another tournament, Thanquol with the boat and the Deceiver.
Yeah.
And it's just so much mobility, so much reactions it can do. Both of them are capable of healing. Thanquol with his own inbuilt healing, and the Deceiver because he's Bravery 10, so he just eats up your heroic action every turn, but he can recover right back. And that comes up a lot, actually. And they both have great damage output. They cover different bases. Thanquol's front to back, clearing out hordes, hitting whatever's behind, or also hitting whatever he just shot at. The Deceiver wants to come in from the side or behind and puts different mobility threats out. The third piece for the list, or the third hero, was the Warlock Engineer. He's there purely for the cannons, 3 cannons, because as we mentioned before previously, you can supercharge as any number of cannons with unengineer as you want. He took Levitate, which was a very important spell for making the Deceiver fly. If he's not taking the Warlord trait to fly, then being able to cast fly on him.
And you can eat a Warpstone token to re-roll it.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
It's an 8 to cast, but near a Nohol, you need a C a 7, and with a reroll, it's a lot easier to get going.
That's not bad. That's like, what, 75% roughly?
I wouldn't know the statistics myself, but that sounds about right. 75%.
Fair enough. I have a question for you on this. Now, Matthias, I don't see the Matrix like you. Okay, this is no secret.
Okay.
But
yeah,
did you see the power of the triple warp lightning cannon in our battle report when I took it?
Okay, so I always knew it was a thing.
Okay, yeah,
and
for sure.
I had heard of people taking it in competitive lists before.
Okay.
And I think that's the first time I'd seen it in person. And I do unfortunately have to say I did pick it for different reasons, but there has to be some subconscious level of me that, like, I will say, gave me a lot of experience about what 3 warp lightning cannons are meant to be doing.
Yeah, can do.
Picking up a monster a turn.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, that's probably worth it.
Yeah. I mean, so in that battle report, we were taking fun lists, and I said to you, I love taking 3 warp lightning cannons. I just hope I can make this battle exciting. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's very good. And then yeah, it was just like, I choose you.
Meta-defining pick.
Yeah, like, dude, like, it was crazy. I mean, I was taking it in 2, and it wasn't good in 2 because you had to have 3 engineers or bombardiers or an arch warlock in 2 or whatever, and so it was just so many points, right?
Yeah.
And they ended up dying like turn 2, and then you've just got like 3 heroes that aren't really doing that much for you. But yeah, in my video with you, and then I saw you were taking it, and you took it against Andy and a few other things, and I was just like,
Yeah,
like, okay, I know I'm not the meta defining guy, but I feel like I deserve something here, right?
it's yeah.
It was
You definitely came up with the idea before I did, and
well,
that had some
I
effect.
mean, it was. I just like warp lightning cannons. I'm not,
Right.
I'm not seeing the Matrix like you, as I started to say, but I had to bring it up because this is my one chance
Right.
to. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
um,
The big
yeah,
point of giving him Vial of the Fulminator
I think I
is
know. It's to double the move characteristic of specifically of the warp lightning cannons. So if people try to get something just out, you can double their move to 6 inches because they have an abysmal 3 inch move,
yes.
right?
So yeah, the only eligible target is the cannon. So therefore, all you're doing is jumping from 3 to 6, but that pushes your threat range from 27 to 30.
Yeah.
And normally that doesn't seem like it matters that much, but the one place it does matter is in the deployment when you're deploying, because it
Oh.
means your opponent has to respect the fact that any cannon you place on the ground could have a 30-inch threat range until you place the engineer down, because they won't know where the engineer goes. Therefore, they have to measure from 30 from all of those points.
Yeah.
And even after the game, even in the games, like after deployment, several turns in, I find that sometimes you're still using it. You're not using it all the time, but every once in a while you still need it to just get that extra 3 inches. And
Fascinating.
so it's mostly meant to force respect out of your opponent, which is the most value I'm going to be getting out of the Magnificent bonus from the Command Entourage. I
That's
don't
fair.
need the extra spell particularly, and an extra artifact. The only other artifact would be making the Master Molder 10 wounds, but I don't care about him that much in this list.
Yeah, you don't have.
Speaking of which,
Yeah. Speaking of which, before you go on to that though, it is worth noting. So I used to take the Vial of the Fulminator. I took it against you, as a matter of fact.
oh, did you?
Yeah, and I put it on the Doom Wheel, but I used to put it on the Warp Lightning Cannon as well. But now it's so much better because it does the same thing, but with less risk of.
Yes. Instead
Yeah,
of a 4-up, you take D3 Mortals. It's on a 1. You take D3 Mortals. On a 2-up, you're okay.
yeah,
Which does super help out on making it a more palatable take.
exactly. And you can. It's less likely that you're going to blow up your Warp Lightning Cannon.
I have blown up my Warp Lightning Cannons rolling the 1 on that vial before.
Yeah.
It's 5 wounds. I roll the 1. I take the 3 damage, and it's just gone. And I'm like, well, I need to be way more careful about how I use the vial.
Yeah, I think it was in our first Skaven Civil War game that I took it against you in Skaven 1. Or 2.0 or whatever, and
Yeah.
you were like, you forgot to roll for that, and I was like, oh, I wouldn't have used it, but it was like too late. We'd moved on, and I was like, well, I guess I got to do it. And then we looked it up, and it was like a 4-up. You take the mortal wounds, not you don't. It was so stupid. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's much better now. I just wanted to point that out because a
Yeah.
lot of people might just remember that it was like, it was a 4-up or it was a 50-50 shot. Exactly.
Mhm.
So, anyway, Master Molder, warped tip lash,
Yep.
nothing on him, just uh,
Yeah, just a naked Master Molder. The Warpstone Tip Lashed is just the better option, I feel, than the pokey weapon. That's because the Lash is 6 attacks at rend 1, damage 1. The Man Catcher is rend 3 attacks at rend 1, damage 2. So ultimately, they're the same output, but more dice is generally better because it means you're going to be more likely to roll average. It's harder to skew when you're rolling more dice.
also, doesn't it have a 2-inch reach as opposed to 1? Or did you
It has a 3-inch reach.
3-inch reach?
Versus
There
a
you go.
2-inch reach. So that part really never comes up.
Well,
The
but,
other
like, if
reason
they
is
charge
because
into you though, like if they charge into you and you can attack over.
the Master Molder's never in that position because clan rats are usually running, but it's technically better. It's true.
It's just better,
It's strictly better to have a 3 over a 2.
Exactly, right?
That part's true. Yeah. And
Um,
the other reason that 2 damage is way worse than 1 is because Heart of Fury, Coalesced, Cruel Gas Cruciators all exist, and that -1 damage just, removes all the benefits.
That's true. That's really true. Keith asked if he spaced out, and so Matthias did explain about the levitate on the engineer, but could you just give him like a Cole's notes?
Yeah, it's purely for the Deceiver so that he can fly. Giving the Deceiver the ability to fly means if he's He can pop his Shadow Magnet trinket, strike first, and scurry away 12 inches. And if he flies, that means he can hop over a unit. So he can pick better positions when he runs away. And he also removes the ability of your opponent to just fully surround him. Therefore, he can't retreat.
It's such a good call. I wish I'd come up with it and not you.
Oh, me too. I had. You'll find a lot of these things were pointed out to me from all different people, and I've just combined good ideas. One of the few ideas that I came up with on my own, and it's not something that I came up with first by any means. When I've looked it up, other people have come up with it before, but the 18 giant rats in Bounty Hunters with the Master Molder is something that I did come up with endemically.
You might have come up with that first, dude. Dude, I remember before the book came out, you were literally talking about giant rats and Molder. You were all about it.
Yeah.
So
the giant rat is my favorite unit from the book, to be fair. And
yeah.
When the book initially came out, back when 3 Claw Steps Ahead modified charge rolls.
Oh yeah. You had multiple
units
of giant rats.
Yes, giant rats in Bounty Hunters, giving them the +3 to charge. They come in, clear screens, kill whatever the hell.
Yep.
Or get some damage and value, and then the main thing was they were giving the bonus to charge to whatever else was in my list. But as I played that list, I'm like, they're giant rats, they're whatever. They'll get some decent value, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I played that list, and I'm like, wait a second. Even if they nerf the charge bonus on these guys,
yeah,
I still feel like giant rats might have some value.
Yeah.
Like, they're just so good.
Death Frenzy.
And, move 8. They're rend 2 if there's 6 or more. They can have a 2-inch reach if there's 10 or more in the unit.
Wow.
So, and they're on 25 mils. Therefore, they can take a really tight amount of space. So they're really space surface area efficient,
right,
which is very important for some models. Like if you're trying to de-level a Cron Spine, which if they have Death Frenzy on them, which effectively doubles their attacks, is really good, because if they're protecting a Cron Spine and you want to de-level it, you can get, just a little 4x3 or whatever block it is. You can fight 3 ranks deep with a 2-inch reach on 25 mil bases, which is super helpful.
Yeah, and 3 ranks deep. Could you just explain that? I actually had someone asking about, I guess basically I'll explain it super quick. 25 mils is less than an inch. So if you have them in base-to-base contact, the one guy on the 3rd rank deep is barely within 2 inches because
exactly.
It's 50.8 inches.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're 2 attacks, 4 up, rend nothing, damage 1, but they get +2 rend if they're 6 or more. They get +1 damage because they're bounty hunters against a GB target, and they're getting +1 to wound from the whip, which also gives the +3 to charge, which is super important. And they sometimes receive an all-out attack, not all the time, but generally. And
how do you give them an all-out attack if they're teleporting in?
Usually, well, the Deceiver and Thanquol are very mobile, and they're both totems, so they're both an 18-inch issuing range.
Right.
So that's why sometimes they won't get it, because you need to be within range.
Got it.
But it's not out of the question to have, their 10-inch, 12-inch movement base. They don't even need to be casting spells to get moving up 10, then fully within 18.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry.
They cover a large swath of things.
Yep.
The big thing that they need to get their value, though, is Death Frenzy. Because they don't have an armor save, they are incredibly squishy.
Yeah.
And so you want to weaponize the fact that they're so squishy. You want to go into things that will completely wipe you in one swing, so that they all fight on death immediately again, which effectively doubles your output. Right. It goes from 18 guys with 2 attacks is 36 attacks to 72 attacks at 4 up, 3 up, or 3 up, 3 up. Rend 2, damage 1, maybe damage 2.
It's damage, or it's rend 2 when they're above 12?
When they're above 6 or more models.
Right.
So the last 5, when you're fighting on death, it's so complicated.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to get into. But yeah, your rend will dwindle as you remove the models one at a time and fight with them one at a time.
Yeah.
But it's the last 5 models. 3 of them have rend 1, 2 have rend nothing. So it's tolerable.
And they're kind of better into units than they are into monsters, I feel like, to a certain extent. Or it depends on the situation.
I find they will happily go into a Magma Droth. With Death Frenzy, they will on average de-level a Kronspine with like 14 damage, so your opponent really needs to, and that's even rolling kind of on the lower end, I feel. Fair. So they could de-level a Kronspine well, they can, pick up 5 Putrid Blight Kings, they can run into a Mega Gargant and rip a chunk of 18 wounds out of him out of nowhere.
Right.
And so they don't have to kill the thing outright to get their value, because the last thing that they do is the Master Molder brings them back to life on a 3-up for a command point.
So good.
So
now you can not roll that, but
yeah. And if they do revive, they won't be battle line, so they won't be GV, because the battle line in Skaven works in you get 1 unit of Giant Rats as battle line per Master Molder in the list. So they can't be battle line, they can't be GV, and they won't be bounty hunters as well.
Because it says an identical unit, so they're not the same unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we saw that in the Call to Aid FAQ, saying when a new unit is set up, they don't keep their core battalions. But Ren 2 damage 1 still gets value against a lot.
What's that from? The cult?
There was the Stormcast have their holy command called to aid.
Called to aid.
And that was in one of the that either their FAQ or the core rules FAQ.
I'm glad to see that there's nothing called Cult of AIDS or something, whatever I missed.
No, that'd be bad.
Yeah.
I
was like, what?
So
I'm not aware of this. Something slashy. It sounds like I don't know what this.
Right.
Sorry. So, what I was talking about earlier too was better into a monster or better into a unit. I was just thinking because remember when you were piling them in one at a time, you still had to worry about coherency to a certain extent.
Yes.
We still don't really know how that works, but putting that aside,
I'm pretty sure you do have to stay in coherency when you fight on death, based on the rules that I've seen.
Yeah.
And then also, I've said this before that they can fight on death in Battle Shock, but I think they don't.
Oh.
It's really, really tricky wording. And so for the tournament, I was not fighting on death to Battle Shock.
Wow.
It never really came up, because if you throw them into a big enough hammer, then they're going to be wiped anyways.
Yeah.
But the wording, the wording is a model that has fleed to Battle Shock counts as having been slain, but isn't slain as he dies, I believe is what it is. Yeah. It's really complex, but I think they don't get to fight on death.
Okay. Huh. It's kind of commonly thought that they do, that's interesting. We can go into it another time. We don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah.
So what would you like to go into next? The clan rats?
Yeah, the clan rats are...
This is the thing that surprised people the most.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because they're commonly kind of thought to be not very good. I have another question. Now, this is not me. So you were planning on doing Night Runners originally, right?
I was toying with the idea of Night Runners here and
so
there.
You and I made some trades. I gave you some really old, ugly Night Runners because you have to use official GW models at the tournament.
Yes.
And then they were on square bases. And then when you went to play, I think it was Andy in that game, you were like, oh, they're on square bases, I can't use them. But luckily I brought extra clan rats. And then you ended up using those extra clan rats and you quite liked them. Was that the moment where you kind of thought, hey, these things are not so
No.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I still would have liked to have Night Runners in the list. They get great value for what they do. Pre-game moving does a lot for protecting more lightning cannons. It means you can... And it also means you can place things directly on the 30-inch, right on the line, to be as far up as possible. So like Thanquol for unbinding or cannons for range. And then you can put Night Runners right next to them and then just pre-game move sideways to cover. That's cool. The kind of thing I would have liked to have.
Okay.
But I just didn't have room for it in the list.
Fair.
And clan rats get the job done enough. So I don't need to really bother with it.
That's fair. Okay. So I guess is that basically it? You've got 3 units, so you've got 60 of them total.
Yeah, I have 3 units of 20 clan reps. I would have preferred all 3 of them be in Expert Conquerors, but I needed the giant rats need to be in bounty hunters to maximize the value. Therefore, one of the clan rat units was in bounty hunters, which is fine. That just means that's the unit that I put up front as the screen unit that's just meant to die, to take a hit and die. The other two are in expert conquerors, and the really amazing part about that means they become a huge threat on objective grabbing, and they're still a screen, they're still bodies, they can still do everything a clan rat unit is meant to do, but they're also just going to almost guaranteed pick up an objective over anything in the game. Like, even if 2 or 3 models are left alive, they regen D3 back, and they're just going to take an objective super easily.
Absolutely. And because of your trick with the battle shock coherency...
One of the neat little tricks I was about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the battle shock phase, they return D3 models, which is before when models are removed due to coherency being broken. That's at the end of the turn.
Yeah.
Therefore, you can string out all you want, and as long as you only break coherency from one end, you'll always roll at least 1 on a D3, so you can always fix your coherency where you need it, which really allows you to just spread them out, splay them out as far as you can, and just, push out deep strikers, touch multiple objectives all at the same time, and so that if your opponent touches one, you're like, okay, the clan rat's going to choose that one to control for this turn. And so they're all the scoring in the list for the most part. They're the ones touching the objectives. They're not getting focused because there's all these other threats. If the opponent has shooting, they're going to shoot at the cannons or Thanquol. If they have melee, they're going to hit the bounty hunter screen of clan rats first, or they're going to be hitting the Deceiver, who's going to be running away.
Yep.
Or they're hitting if I'm allowing them to hit Thanquol, it's because he has Mystic Shield or Finest Hour or some amount of save stacking to be able to tank it. And so
that's
they
really,
do a lot of work for scoring.
I'm definitely into clan rats again. Like the whole bounty hunter thing, I think I was like a lot of people where I was kind of like getting a little discouraged by it because you just see bounty hunters in every list and it's just like, what's the point? They just die to anything with bounty hunters on them.
Right.
But I digress.
To that end, you do need like 3 units of clan rats. I find when I ran 1 or 2 units of clan rats, the fact that bounty hunters exist means it's too simple for your opponent to pick up the 1 or 2 units, and then your scoring is gone.
True.
3 or more is the point where I'm finding I'll usually have at least 1 unit of clan rats still alive by turn 4 or 5. And therefore, I'll still have a scoring potential.
And if they're the one in expert conquerors, then they can really just be like, "Oh no, this is mine." Like you ain't.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to wipe them out, or it's mine. Okay, and then so Romulan Dog had a question before we. Before we go answer his question, you've got 3 warp lightning cannons. We've kind of already explained that it's there to just I choose you and you die. 450 plus the so you're at 555 for like this crazy amount, and they are very like you can roll 3 6s for your power level and they do nothing, but most of the time you'll get one that rolls a 1 or a 2 and then you're generally doing
that's why you run 3 minimum. I really don't like taking less than 3 because you need there's usually always one that rolls a 5 up and usually always one that rolls a 3 or better.
Yep.
And as long as you can get one with 3 or better, that's enough to pop a hero that you really need to kill that turn, or soften up a monster, if not straight up kill it before you kill it with melee.
Right.
Cannons over Storm Fiends or Jezzails because it's just straight mortal wounds, and that is so valuable these days.
Yeah.
When
save stacking.
so many things. There's so many things. Yeah, there's save stacking. There's minuses to hit and wound in combat or from shooting, whether it's new ogres or you're sitting in the Seraphon Temple in the garrison for -1 to hit, or you can Destiny dice an auto 6 to auto pass your armor save on a hero with any other, even like run 3. You can't all out defense it. It doesn't care about minuses, and it's just flat mortals. So against a few things, it won't do. It'll do worse than normal shooting, like a contorted epitome. But one, I knew I wasn't going to run into those things in this tournament because I knew all the factions going into it. And two, it's just there's so many things that it can kill. I just love them. They have great range as well.
And they're an awesome model, and I know that doesn't mean anything to a lot of people,
Yeah.
but they are super cool. So on that note, Romulan Dog was asking, one engineer seems risky. Why not take another?
Yeah, it'd be great if I could take another. I do like it. It would be really nice to have multiple, but
yeah,
for a unit that typically will, all three of them will have killed themselves or partially killed themselves and had the enemy finish them off by the end of turn 2. 2 engineers is just an overinvestment in the cannons. They won't be sticking around long enough, and if they do pop the hero, which happened to me against Caleb, top of 1, he takes turn 1.
What?
Spell portal pops the engineer. Yeah.
Oh,
they still get their value. I mean,
they just
you just can't rely on them to. Yeah, you can't rely on them to kill a Lord of Change in one turn if they don't have the engineer, but they can still get him pretty damn low. And a Deceiver, if that's his assassin target, can try and get him the rest of the way, or you try and get melee the rest of the way.
Fair.
It's still, yeah, they're still only 150 points, and I can still roll a 1 and do 6 mortal wounds from 24 inches away with them.
You know what?
So it's not the end of the world if you lose them.
So you know what I was doing was, and obviously this is, too late, and it doesn't matter, and you're the better player, etc. But I was taking Storm Vermin, not against you. I actually didn't have them. I didn't have the points to take Storm Vermin, but that was my next iteration was Storm Vermin, because then he can just deflect the wounds, and they can also be in bounty hunters. But
to protect them better,
but
yeah.
There's nothing you can take out that you don't want to keep that's worth putting the Storm Vermin in. But yeah, like this. Okay, so we've gone over the list, right? What is one of the questions that we got was, what was your strategy with this list?
Yeah, so there definitely was a strategy going with this, and specific game plans going into it, knowing my opponent's lists and factions, knowing their factions before I made the list, and then knowing their lists before going into the tournament, of course.
Right. Now, to be fair, though, too, you were running a similar version of this list outside of the tournament, like just testing it out before you knew who your opponent was or their list.
Yeah, I've been playing with elements of the list for a while. The triple warp lightning cannon I've been taking to several GTs now.
Yep.
I said before, Thanquol and the Deceiver I took to a different GT beforehand as well.
Yep.
So it's all pieces that I've used in conjunction before, and I'm just combining them here.
Yep.
The general idea of the list.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out that you do have like it's not, this list doesn't, and your game plan doesn't only apply to this specific tournament that you were going to.
Yes. Yeah. This is a list I would still take 90% of the time to any GT. The only parts that would have changed would have been the giant rats and Master Molder. That was the only extra points I was playing with that I could possibly switch out.
Okay.
They had a specific job.
Now, what would you put in there if it wasn't them?
That could be that might be Night Runners if I just want to protect my backline more.
Yep.
Or like the cannons more from charge threats. It might be, Storm Vermin if I really do want to protect my heroes. But it is hard to find something better than giant rats, because for 270 points there's not a lot that's going to punch better. It could be the Warcry Verminlord, because that's 270 points there, plus I have 5 spare points, which is exactly enough for a Warcry.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that could be a third option, although the Warcry suffers if it doesn't have the Warlord trait and artifact like all the Verminlords do.
Yeah.
But it really depends on, that would be more of a meta call, is what I use with those last 270 points.
Got it.
Although having played this list, I'd be confident taking this list to any other tournament blind.
Fair. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
So
that's really cool. Okay, so sorry, go back to you. I don't want to interrupt too much, but I just wanted because people are
yeah, for sure,
you
for
know
sure.
like there are people out there that are going to net list your list now for sure. Obviously, it's
Oh
like
yeah.
you're like you're like officially like the second best player in the world now. With Skaven.
I we were based on like ITC rankings, and only one British person got to get in. So it's like I wouldn't say the world. This is the U.S. Open.
That's fine. You don't have to say it, Matthias. I will.
Nope.
Moving right
All right.
along, but I just wanted everyone to get something out of this. You know what I mean? Even if they're not going to literally just copy and paste your list, because I'm not the type to copy and paste myself. So just a general.
Mhm.
So yeah, walk us through your game plan.
Yeah. So the list, the way I built the list was I just took things, or I took the combo pieces that were just the most efficient and I liked playing the most,
Yep.
and just kind of combined them all together. Thanquol, the Deceiver, the Cannons. That's where I started.
Okay.
That's 1,020 points, and that's the core of the list. And as it turns out, those pieces actually synergize really well together. Because Thanquol and the Deceiver are big, punchy monsters that can be anywhere on the board that I need them, either teleporting anywhere outside of 6 or using Lausch on the Soul Seeker to move an effective 30 inches. And so they combo really well together as my super mobile reactive threats. I can use both of them plus the Nahals as a matter of getting my heroes or getting my combat pieces where I need them, when I need them. And it means I can threaten an alpha strike. I can put in both of my big heroes, shoot my cannons, send the giant rats through the Nahal, all turn one, and go all in as aggressive as possible. Or I can just sit back, use my cannons from range, use Thanquol's casting to suppress my opponent's combo spells or whatever damage spells they have, and I can throw in just the giant rats because they want to die. They're even okay trading down if it means clearing out screens. They do. They want a death frenzy and die.
They
have
are
a
the
death
meme
frenzy.
of I guess I'll die.
Guess I'll die. Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, and the other really nice synergy piece that I found was the Deceiver and the triple cannons is a double whammy of deployment threats. So you need to stay outside of 30 inches of all of my Nahals, each cannon on the ground, because that's their threat range with Vile, or they set up wholly within 6 of a Nahal, shoot 24. So you have to stay super far away with your most vulnerable pieces. And you also need to screen out against a giant monster that will show up 6 inches from anywhere.
Yeah.
So your deployment is being pushed super far back from your deployment edge, and you also have to spread out your units as far out as possible, which then inherently makes giant rats have an easier time clearing out your screens. They can come in, hit a screen that's being set up, and then in the later turns, my monsters can come in at the hole where they built, where they punched through. But it makes my opponent really strung out for keeping in mind all the different ways that I can threaten heroes. And it just gets harder and harder as the game goes on, as you need to spread out, move out, touch objectives. You need to hit and touch my things, but you also still want to stay out of shooting range. You want to stay out of Thanquol or dreaded Skitterleaf range, etc., etc. So it like stresses out your opponent in their movement phase, which is typically the most important phase of the game.
Agreed. Now, you were talking about moving a warp lightning cannon through a Nahal, right?
Yes.
So, to make that a threat, wouldn't you have to Skitterleap the engineer in next to it, and then wouldn't they both be quite vulnerable? Yeah. But I guess your point being then, if they have a piece that's really valuable to them, more valuable than the engineer warp lightning cannon, then you can reach out and touch it through the Nahal. Is that kind of the point?
Yeah, if you your opponent has to respect it regardless of how risky it might be, because if it is something they rely too much on, then they can't afford to risk it. But you also don't actually stick their heads out too much doing something like that, because the Deceiver and Thanquol move fast enough that an auto run will get them in front, whether you want to be in front with the Deceiver, or Thanquol just needs to be wholly within 18 of both of the cannons. Because even naked, unless they're getting shot at, a double Unleash Hell from Thanquol's ability to split the command ability twice.
Right.
And you can supercharge an Unleash Hell because it's just when the cannons are selected to shoot.
Yep, exactly.
Means that whatever melee threat they toss into those cannons will just get picked up.
Right.
So it would only be a problem against chaff. And
right.
For the most part, that never really came up because when you look at your opponent's list, you can see whether you're going to want to jump cannons through knotholes to hit their heroes or support pieces or whatever it may be. And if that's the case, that you do want to rely on the cannons being used that way, then it just informs your knothole placement. It means you're going to keep 2 knotholes within setup range of your deployment zone so that you can send 2 cannons through, then just teleport or Lausch on the engineer over. And then that third knothole, you place some distance back that the cannons will still be able to shoot far into your opponent's setup range, into their deployment zone, but not so far up that they're being risked. So it just means you have to be more careful with how you place the knotholes more than anything.
So you have 2 in your deployment and then 1 on the side, so that you could.
And 1 anywhere you want to shoot from. Yeah. So typically that'll be an edge of the board that covers 30 inches, covers the majority of their deployment zone, or the majority of where they might want to be.
That's really, I didn't think about obviously I knew about Thanquol doing a double Unleash Hell, but I didn't think about that as like what do you call it? Like a backup plan, so to speak. You know what I mean? Wow, that's brilliant. That's really good. Sorry, I don't remember what you were talking about before that. Oh, you were talking about the 3 power pieces. Right.
Yeah, so that's the main 3 pieces of the list: Thanquol, the Deceiver, the triple cannons. The 4th, and it's a minor one, but it's still a big one, is the giant rats. Right? Their job is to clear out screens so that I can hit stuff behind them, or if they have a cron spine, get a free level on the cron spine.
Nice.
Or just be a general problem. They preferably
you say free like it's this is a foregone conclusion, but I guess it kind of is. Like,
I take the giant rats knowing that they will be gone.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the things that I expect that I want to have sticking around through the game are the 2 monsters and the clan rats. Everything else can die. The cannons, the support, the 2 little foot heroes, the giant rats. I'm okay with them all being gone by turn 3. It's the scoring units, the clan rats, which are really the glue that's keeping all of this together, and then my hammers to deal with, the board state, whatever it is, turn 3 onwards.
Brilliant.
The clan rats being an expert conquerors is really what makes the list viable, because otherwise cannons are 2 points on an objective, monsters are 5. The giant rats are going to be dead, so they're not going to be really sitting on objectives because their job is to go in and die. Therefore, I really, really need clan rats to be sitting back, scoring, or doing whatever it is that you want a 20-man body worth 3 to score, whether it's screening, scoring, absorbing hits from something.
Before I forget again, I meant to ask you, so this list, and what I've noticed of you mostly recently is you don't care about drops.
No. That's the thing I find with Skaven is they rely, at least the way I build the list, is clan rats need to be an expert conqueror so that I can still score. The giant rats need to be in bounty hunters so that they can still properly pick up large units, whether they're GB. And then past that, and then triple cannon physically doesn't fit in a normal battle reg that at minimum makes you 3 drops.
Yeah.
And so at that point,
you'd be 4 because you have 2 monsters over 12 anyway.
Yeah, and I have 2 monsters as well. Well, actually, they're heroes, so technically you can fit those in 2 battle regiments separately.
Got it. That's true. Yeah, sorry, I meant to tell you can't fit it in. Yeah, that's true. But then, I guess what your point is, there'd be minimum 3, even with 2 battle regiments. Got it. That's true.
But I've never been a person to play around going low drops and trying to determine who goes first, because, again, cannons here with a 27 or 30-inch threat range means that a lot of the time my opponent wants to go first. If they're capable of picking up my engineer, they'll want to go first to do that, or they want to go first before my cannons get to shoot, or they go first because they messed up in deployment and I was able to set up cannons threatening to kill one of their important heroes, and now they have to go first to fix that mistake they made. And so,
and Keith actually makes a really good point there, that if you have lots of drops, then you just put the cannons down last, essentially, is what he's saying. And then
Keith, you are exactly on the point for why I love going as many drops as I can with this list. When you take triple cannons, you want to be as many drops as you possibly can, because you want to get maximum information out of your opponent before you start committing them down on the board. It is so valuable, and I am so happy whenever I see my opponent with 4 or less drops, or any number less than my cannons, as low as possible, their drops, because that means I can measure unbind ranges on Thanquol, I can place cannons into range, and cannons out of range of their shooting. It's just perfect.
You know, guys, you're both, my hat's off to you. That's brilliant. Yeah,
it's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of little mini synergies in the list, and that's, you know, this is something I learned from Magic the Gathering, was when you make a list and it has lots of little accidental bonuses that you run into, that's when you know that it's a really well-rounded, adaptive list. Something that's really playing into its strengths well. High drops means that I can get all of these bonuses, like Expert Conquerors and Bounty Hunters, that I really want, but it also means I can get maximum information for the cannon placement. Clan Rats can do objective scoring and screening and just taking a hit and still surviving, because 20 wounds sometimes is a difficult threshold to hit. And if you don't pick up 20 Clan Rats, then they just start regenning back. And as long as they're Expert Conquerors, 2 of them, 1 model, regenning D3 back will generally pick up an objective from anything. The Deceiver, he's using his teleport threat to mess with my opponent's deployment, forcing them to screen, to keep deep strikers out from 6 inches away, because I can teleport at any time. He's also a major threat. He's also my major tanky piece. All of these things are using multiple jobs all at the same time, and then they're also working with each other. The Deceiver and Thanquol are mobility. The Deceiver and the Warp Lightning Cannons are threats. The Clan Rats and the Giant Rats are bodies. The Deceiver and the Clan Rats are soft DPS checks. So there's all of these different little combos, and Laoshan the Soul Seeker mainly belongs to Thanquol for his mobility, but it's also useful for getting the engineer into range of
the
lightning cannons if they go through. If they're going through the Nahole, then I can use that instead.
Yeah, you could put 2 cannons through the Nahole.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And so even if they unbind, or I fail my teleport, or I want to use my teleport, which I typically want to use the teleport on the Deceiver, I still have Thanquol I still have the Bringy Dingy to bring over the engineer.
The Bringy Dingy is Laoshan, the Soul Seeker?
Laoshan, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about that. That's so freaking awesome. Okay. Wow. Okay, so what is your deployment typically look like for this?
So this list will put the Bounty Hunter Clan Rats directly on the front line.
Okay.
They're the screens.
Just
because they're not
as far as you can?
Yeah, typically they'll take up maximum space, which is a lot with 20 bodies.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that... So Clan Rats are supposed to be dual job between objective grabbing and screens, but because they're not in Expert Conquerors, they're the unit in Bounty Hunters. They want to be the first and foremost of the units to be the screen, most likely to die. And so they'll be right on the front line.
Yeah.
Then directly behind them is either the cannons or the monsters, or if the battle plan allows with enough space, both. I'll have a cannon nearby, or I'll have a Gnawhole nearby to give the plus to cast, so Thanquol and the Deceiver. The Deceiver is either, depending on the matchup, he's either right behind Clan Rats as well, or he's way back, just within range of a Gnawhole. He's either planning to just teleport, and he's trying to stay out of Unbind because of that, or he's right up front so that if he doesn't get his teleport, he's just going to walk up the board and just try and take a melee hit and walk away with his Shadow Manga Trinket. The matchups where he's not going to try to do that is when there's a Kron Spine, because he can't retreat if he's within domination range of a Kron Spine. So that's when he's going to play more evasive and try and avoid where the Kron Spine is.
That makes sense.
The Giant Rats will sit in the backboard. They're very rarely going to walk up in charge. They move 8, so they can do it in like an 18 apart start battle plan. But for the most part, they're hopping through a Gnawhole, getting whipped, hopping through a Gnawhole and charging it. Or they're counter-punching after someone comes directly in or from a side.
Yeah.
So that's generally how it goes. And then the 2 units of Clan Rats in Expert Conquerors, if they don't need to screen, like from a melee threat, like if it were Iron Jaws, I might have 2 layers of Clan Rats just as a protection. But for the most part, and in smaller scenarios where the 1 unit of 20 Clan Rats can get the job done, they're usually the furthest back, just sitting huddled up as tightly as possible, just staying safe. Because late game, they're the ones scoring, and also late game, I can redeploy them out as a screen. I can just run them with their +2 to run, turn them into a screen if I need to, or just run out and touch an objective. But because they're so valuable with the Expert Conquerors, they don't want to be screening if they don't have to, and thankfully I do have 1 unit of Clan Rats that is okay being a screen because they're not Expert Conquerors.
And that goes more to your point of having 3 units instead of 2 or 1. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then they can't dual purpose very well.
In a time where everyone is trying not to bring GV, you're leaning into them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when you play GV in this GHB, you have to do it in min-sized units. They all have to, because you have to remove as much value from your opponent's bounty hunters as possible. You can't take 40s or 60s of Clan Rats, because when you run into a person with 10 snakes in bounty hunters or 6 or 9 Sylvaneth bugs in bounty hunters, those kinds of things will just be so happy. And so 20-man units mean, okay, yes, you can hit it, but at least you're hitting something that might have been acting as a screen anyways, and at least I still have more.
That's true, yeah. James loves your list.
And in the case of Giant Rats, the Giant Rats want to die anyway, so they're happy.
Die, yeah, and you might get to bring them back and hit something again and die again and hit something again, and it goes on. James loves your list. I like, honestly, James, I don't know. Some people are obviously joining us late here. Go back, listen to what Matthias said. I had a lot of these aspects, but I was not seeing the Matrix until tonight. It is chef's kiss. Alex feels targeted. He also asked earlier, what was it like playing double elimination?
That was a really cool way to play the game. Normally, you never have to worry about playing opponent's list again. If you beat them, that's it. Or if you lost to them, that's it. But there was an interesting moment where I lost my 3rd game, and I got knocked into the loser's bracket, and I had this thought, and I'm like, oh, everybody I saw who had lost previously, then I'm like, thank God I don't have to fight that person now.
Yeah.
Now I have to fight them, maybe.
Yeah.
And so now I'm not out of the woods. And whenever I beat someone, even if it felt a little bad, you could always say, like, you better fight me again. I better see you coming through that loser's bracket to come fight me again, right?
Totally.
Or, like, maybe we'll still play again. There's these chances where in, like, this high-level tournament where people are able to see what you've done in a list and be able to maybe change up their game plan afterwards, it makes it a lot scarier to take a one-trick pony list. But also, you're never out. You can lose a game and still be in it. It also means interesting things for an 8-person double elimination tournament. You can build a list. I thought Caleb's list was actually kind of genius, taking a Kronspine that's entirely reliant on eating this Umbral Spell Portal top of turn 1 to go to level 3. Because if he fails to eat it, he de-levels down to level 1 and basically loses the game. But it's a 1 in 12 chance. And so what I loved about his list is all you care about is not losing twice. You can afford to lose once and still win the entire thing just fine. Yeah. And so if you're relying on a 1 in 12 chance thing for your list to function, you can kind of actually accept those odds. Because if you do roll that 1 in 12 chance and de-level the Kronspine instead of sending them up a level, you lose that game, but you can still win the tournament as long as you don't do it again.
So what was the spell that he was eating?
The Umbral Spell Portal. It's basically any endless spell that casts on a 5. That's the lowest casting value any endless spell can get.
Okay.
So you're just trying to increase the odds of eating your own endless spell as much as possible.
And I see the Kronspine gets +2, so he needs to roll a 4 or better.
A 4 or better. So the chances of rolling a 2, a 3, or a 3 on 2d6 is 1 in 12.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. Yeah, because there's only 3 combinations of that. Anyway, wow. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I agree with Alex. It reduces the value of gimmicks. And yeah, there's a phenomenon in the fighting game community where when you play someone, you see what they're doing, and it exponentially increases the odds of you winning against them if you play it once, you fully experience it, and then you can internalize it and think about it, and then next time around you can make a game plan. I used to play the local people in our area with. I didn't play it like against anyone who didn't ask. Okay, I'm not a jerk. But do you remember the Goutfire Scorch Battalion?
Oh yes, the Goutfire
Scorch. I had everything I needed for that, and so I brought it, and everyone got trounced the first time because it would just pop up and then do like an average of like 35 mortal wounds, and so it would just kill like everything good, and so but then we would usually re-rack in like 10 or 15 minutes because it was just like over. But then the second time they almost always either, it was always a very close game the second time. So yes. Keith says, so is Matthias the result of a thinker playing Skaven in the hammer meta you have mentioned is what your area is and learning to make it work? I mean, Matthias has always been a thinker.
There was yeah, I do love the toolbox armies because I love coming up with these little things, and Skaven is one of, if not the best toolbox army with all of the different roles it fills. And there was a lot of trial and error with trying out the book. Basically, what I did for all of the GTs leading up to this was I was taking a tour through the Skaven book. I was trying out Rat Ogres. I was trying out Gutter Runners. I was trying out the Warbringer, the Deceiver, the Warpnaw, the Kronspine, Cannons, Jezzails. I haven't actually tried out Storm Fiends yet because everybody plays Storm Fiends, and that's what made me not want to play them anyways.
Fair.
But just trying out all these different pieces and then seeing what I liked best, what functioned the best for me, and then and then this list kind of culminated in what I thought worked the best, what I think synergizes the best.
It's, like everyone always asks about the list, but it really, and I know some people, I understand, like I always want to know the list too, and I don't think it's that simple, but it really is. Like Matthias you were grinding games before, like you have
about 4 games a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, mostly on TTS, right? And it just
pretty
allows you
to
really learn your list, try out things, and learn other people's stuff. James is asking if you're going to LVO.
I will not be. I don't have the money to go to any other GTs until spring next year, mostly local ones.
Yeah, you can come and fight him locally for sure.
If you want to come, we're in the Vancouver area, so Pacific Northwest is our meta. I go to a lot of Seattle, Tacoma, those kind of base tournaments, and then any other BC tournament, there's not a lot. There's one on Vancouver Island. There's hopefully one in Vancouver soon.
Yeah.
And then there's one in Prince George. But those are the areas that you would find me in, basically.
Guaranteed. If anyone wants to sponsor Matthias to go to LVO.
Oh my goodness.
I think
tickets are sold out already.
Oh, dang. Maybe like a celebrity appearance then.
Oh, yeah.
Thor asks, he says, I didn't hear you mention his results. So it's double elimination. So you won 2 games. Well, I mean, first of all, he won the Seattle Open. He went 5-0 to get into this, right? So yeah. Anyway,
was not Skaven, yeah.
Exactly. So then you got second overall. You got second.
Yeah, I got second place.
Yeah.
Because I was the last person to be eliminated, and I was eliminated by the person who won the bracket.
Who won the whole thing, the whole shebang, and he won it with Seraphon, a really interesting list. So, okay.
Yes, it was a Glock Nurgle list in Tacoma. That's the one.
It was, yeah. He says, "Thank you. Always nice to know how you reach the end result of the list." Yeah, it's really great. Okay. So,
I will say I had a pretty scientific approach. I'm a microbiologist by profession.
Yeah.
Although I'm just starting out as one. I'm a lab assistant right now, but I am a microbiologist. So
You're
feel
so
like I have
humble and
a
honest. Like, why would you even tell the people that? I'd just be like, I'm a microbiologist.
Because I don't want to. Because I want to be truthful.
You're so humble. This is not very Skaven, Matthias. This is the only thing I don't approve of.
It's true.
You need to act more Skaven.
I'm the world, God's gift in terms of geniuses to this planet, and I'm easily the best Skaven player in the world. Anthony Trentinelli, come at me. Your 9 Stormfiends list is absolute garbage. I'd dumpster it in any day of the week. But anyway,
you need to add that you need to add like a Homer Simpson. Now that's sarcasm at the end. Yeah,
that's sarcasm.
Just in case people don't pick up on it. Yeah, Matthias is way too humble.
Yeah,
but
the approach to the list building I find myself doing is I found myself trying out a little bit of everything, and I would always start by not taking something just to try it out, but taking something because it has promise. Like 4 Rat Ogres is 24 wounds on a 4-up that you can revive on a 3-up. You can give them +3 to charge. They have a bit of shooting. They have a bit of melee. They do it all. That seems like a list that I could build around. That's something that has promise. I tried making a 8 Rat Ogre list. I took things. I ended up really hating it when I took it to the GT. But I learned a lot about Rat Ogres, and I learned about the Warbringer. I learned about the Plague Furnace. And then a list before that, I tried Plague Sensor Bearers and Gutter Runners, Deceiver and Thanquol.
You did it on the channel, a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, I've done that on the channel before, and I took that to a GT. And I found Gutter Runners are really good, but they really struggle. 9 Doom Wheels, I love it.
Wait, aren't they still behemoths? They used to be behemoths.
Yeah, you'd have to do it in a non-tournament game.
Non-tournament, got it, okay.
But that would be absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
The amount of mortal wounds they put out.
That would be so much fun. And
yeah.
3 claw steps ahead, still works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. You would need it.
Doom Flayers.
Doom Flayers.
That makes way more sense.
That's a fun list.
They're both cool. Don't get us wrong.
Right. It's a fun little list for sure. And I found Gutter Runners, they're really powerful, but they can be countered really easily. Yeah. Plague Sensor Bearers are one of the hardest hitting things in this book, but they're so immobile, and therefore I can't rely on them. Thanquol and the Deceiver is a really nice combo because they're both hypermobile. I took that essence and carried it forward. And I found not only was I getting experience with all these different units and pieces and possible synergies, But my first tournament, I went 3-2. My next tournament, I went 3-1-1. Then I went straight to a 5-0 because it was a pretty soft tournament at Nanaimo. And then I went 4-1 at the P&W Masters. So I kind of like, graded up as I zeroed in on things that I liked more, maybe fit my playstyle more, but also as I worked through the list of units that had promise and seemed really good, I kind of honed in more and more. And so it's a very iterative style of building list. There's different approaches, like you just try and look at the meta, build a list that covers everything that you'll handle in the meta, that covers its own weaknesses, and take that. There's taking what you like. And then there's any other different ways that I'm not even thinking of. But the way that I find I like doing is, trying out things. And in between each of these GTs, with all of these list general approaches, I was playing numerous little games of TTS in between where I would like slightly tweak, like, okay, maybe instead of 4-4-2 rat ogres, I drop out those rat ogres, or maybe I add in more giant rats to try and build off the synergy of Master Molders more. And then eventually I take it to the GT, hate it, and then switch out. But I'm still like slowly tweaking, trying to get that list
just
as best
iterating.
as what it can do at that job.
Yeah.
And then just trying out a new idea entirely and iterating off of that.
We should get you on to just talk about list building, because I've always said this about you, and I'm not just like I've literally said this to so many people. There are definitely people out there that confirm, but Matthias has always brought something different. Back when OBR was in their absolute heyday and everyone was taking like 80 Mortreck Guard, you brought Nagash and what are they called? Harbingers? Or what are they called?
Yeah. Morghast Harbingers.
Morghast Harbingers. And I played you, and he's actually really fun to play against. People don't know this, but like, he's really funny, and like, even when he's absolutely smashing your teeth in, like you did, man, you just smashed my teeth in so hard. You actually are my nemesis. Like, you are my demon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
the worst rat.
I couldn't, like, and not only that, like, you tend to roll well too. Like, in our first game, I brought Skaven, you brought Khorne, and you had 3 Bloodthirsters, and they all hit, and it just exploded like a video game, and just everything was gone.
Oh, man.
And it was just like, oh man, this was over quick.
What a spectacle.
Yeah, it really was a spectacle. But like, I remember in that game with the Nagash Harbinger list, I was just like, oh, like I can now, I'm gonna win it with this because it's IDK. You don't have any of the BS OBR tactics,
Right. Yeah.
And then just like I couldn't do anything, right? And then I was just like,
oh man.
I was frustrated that like I literally couldn't do anything, right? And I was just like, Matthias, like, can I not just do something? And then you laughed and you said, oh, I'm sorry, did you think you were gonna get to play in this game or something like that? So hard. Oh man. Oh,
insert so humble right there.
You are humble though, like that's
I
the thing.
shit talk as much as possible.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's reading the room, right? Like, obviously you knew I could take that. Oh man, you said other stuff too that absolutely cracked me up while we were beating my face in with a wet noodle, somehow. With a wet noodle.
Excuse me, they weren't that soft.
Yeah.
Or Harbinger's Dash is a good list. I did well with it.
You did really well. It was crazy. James says, love 20 clan rats with Doomflayers hidden, tunnel up with warp grinders. Yeah, outside of 9, and then they pop outside of 3. 6-inch charge. Absolutely. James says,
Doomflayers are such an interesting little piece.
They really are. I only have one of them, and it was literally to make that one of the Scryer battalions that was terrible, but I just like them. Right. They're just little like motorcycles, motorcycle, I don't know what to call them.
Concept is cool.
What's that?
The concept of the Doomflayer is really cool.
It's really cool, and they're so awesome in Total War, but that's a whole other story.
I need to give him a shot.
Yeah. James says, have you done much Verminous testing with Storm Vermin?
I haven't, and that's only because Bounty Hunters is making Storm Vermin so bad right now.
It's making them extra bad.
That's part of the, like, I've taken it, when I build the list, I take an idea that seems like it has a lot of power to start, and I try and build off of that. to me right now, they really don't have that good baseline to work with to start. So I can't really build around them.
So
I
new
would
new
definitely consider
GHB.
trying it out in the future.
Yeah,
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 with
that's
the
what
new
I was
GHB,
thinking too.
exactly.
I love Storm Vermin. They're actually one of my favorite units. Like the models aren't the best thing ever, but I just love them so much. I always
Mhm.
have since like the 90s. But James also says it was oh, he was part of, sorry, he was going with that. Sorry. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I did pull up the questions.
Yeah,
From this is mostly from Facebook, but there was like a few from Twitter. And thank you to
yeah.
everyone.
To be fair, we were planning on showing up next Tuesday, but we pushed
Or,
it to today. So
originally, so Matthias had to fly in at like 4 a.m. or something crazy, and then he was like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And then you messaged me, was it yesterday?
yep,
The
yesterday.
days are blending for me as well. So
Right.
and he was just like, I'm actually fine. Okay, so yeah, so apologize for the not much notice, but I was so excited to talk with
Mm-hmm.
Matthias, so I was just like, let's do it. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So a few questions. So the first one, um, and I'm so sorry. I actually meant to write down people's names, and I just realized I totally forgot. So
Uh-oh.
so so I can pull it up if we want. I'm sure I could find my post. While I'm doing that, so the first question he asks is, are Verminlords worth their points, and if so, which one? Well, we've kind of answered that, but why
Yeah.
don't you just
So
explain briefly, and I'll grab that.
Vermin Lords are some of almost all of them can get their value. Some of them are only some of them are get their value reliably. The Warbringer is super good that if they have Devious Adversary Warpstone Charm for just giga punching things, and Dreaded Death Friend is a really good spell. Giga punching, I love it.
Yeah.
Especially going into a meta where rally 4-up rallies are becoming more and more prevalent through new books. Being able to outright kill something becomes all the more important. Because if you can't kill it,
True.
it'll just get a 4-up rally and you lose so much value. So the Warbringer is going to become more and more valuable as, Slaves to Darkness with the 5-up rally that they have, Daughters with their 4-up rally, Gits with the 4-up rally, etc., etc. Beast of Chaos with a 4-up rally.
Yeah, it goes
So
on and
he's
on.
just, yeah, he just punches things
And
and
battle
takes them out.
plans too. There are battle plans, or there's a battle
Mm-hmm.
plan where you can 4-up rally GV. So
Yep, won't
anyone can
back
do it.
down. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, or even people getting 6-up rallies on things like Fulminators. It can really hurt when they get that 6. Or Iron Jaws, because they can triple issue rally
Yeah.
with their Mega Boss.
Yeah.
They can, even if they're missing 1 or 2 models per pig unit, they're still rolling like 6 dice total. So they're going to get pigs back at a time, and that hurts. So the Warbringer is great for that reason.
Yeah.
The Deceiver is great because he teleports, he's tanky, he hits. I will say they all generally need the Warlord trait and artifact.
The Devious Adversary, and whatever one they have access to. You didn't explain about why you really like the Warp Gnaw.
Yeah, and the Warp Gnaw, he's great because he's kind of the in-between of the two, the Warbringer and the Deceiver.
Yeah.
He's mobile because his base is small enough to fit in Laushon.
Yeah.
So he doesn't teleport outside of 6, but he can take Laushon.
He's on the 92?
It's damage zone. He's on the 110 by 92.
110, I couldn't, yeah.
Which is the largest one that still barely fits within 3 inches of Laushon.
Oh, it's so sick.
He hits harder than the Deceiver, but not as hard as the Warbringer. And he doesn't have the reliability that the Warbringer has, because the Warbringer gets rerolls to wound, whereas he gets nothing. He still also requires a Warlord trait and artifact. He needs Devious Adversary to go from 4 to 2 attack, 6 attacks, which is really important when you're damage 5 per swing. And he's really needs Vial of Manticore Venom, so he's wounding on 2s instead of 3s. Therefore, he can get to 2s and 2s, which I feel is what you really need when you're having so few attacks. 6 attacks is such a small number that you really want to push those rates as much as you can.
Totally agree. I just want to point out, I took him day 1 in the first 2 battle reports.
Yeah, that's right.
I played terribly, but I did know about that combo. I was right in there day
There you
one with
go.
that combo. By the way, this question comes to you. Oops, sorry, everyone. We're past the time that I told my phone not to disturb me. This question came, and I'm sorry about the pronunciation. Gel Shaustra. So that was. So I think we kind of covered that. The Verminlords. We've already gone into it pretty good.
Well, the ones that I don't like,
Okay.
the Corruptor can be good. Again, needs
The
his artifact roller trait.
Absolutely.
He needs the Blade of Corruption and then probably Devious Adversary still,
Yeah.
because you're rolling 2d6 attacks, but he's the slot machine.
Mm-hmm.
Screech Vermin King, like Keith was saying.
Yeah.
Suffers
you
so
love
much.
Screech. You love him. Like,
Screech is cool.
Yeah.
He's super cool, but he is just bad.
Yeah.
His spell is, if he weren't a named character, I would be taking him so much, because that spell is godlike.
Yes.
Getting a unit of clan rats as summoning for an army that typically doesn't summon is just changes the face of how the army runs.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it creates a unit and does an average of 6 or 7 mortal wounds from range.
Yeah.
That is so good. But
so
he
good.
can't get endemic pluses to cast except for the Master Clan for 1 turn.
Yeah.
And so you can't plan on having that spell go off when it casts on innate, even with the Nahul. And then he can't take Flaming Weapon because he's a named character, which means his damage 2 thing is only going to be good in the turn that he goes for Scryer, where it becomes damage 3.
Got it. Yeah.
And so it's just, he's so close to being really good.
Yeah.
And his command ability to give any Skaven +1 to hit and wound is amazing, because so many things, because not everything can get that access to +1 to wound. And like Thanquol will just pop off if he gets +1 to hit and wound.
Yeah.
But like, he's so close to greatness. But the fact that he's a unique character just ruins everything and makes him bad.
It's true. So he also.
And then the last is the Warp Seer.
The Warp. Oh, right. The Warp Seer.
The Warp Seer is very corner case valuable. Like, I like him when you're taking 6 Storm Fiends, because the Storm Fiends need the Bravery 10 that he provides.
Right.
Other than that, he's mostly casting on a stick. With the double nerf they've done to 3 cost steps ahead, his big draw being worth 2 for that means nothing.
Yep.
But his spell is good. It's the only version of Warp Gale that's still around.
Uh-huh.
And he's a not named character, Master Clan, which means he can get the rerolls, or he can get Skaven Brew, or he can get the Master of Magic general trait from Skaven. Yeah, Skaven Brew, or
which
he can
is
get
strong. It's quite
all
strong.
kinds of value. Yeah. It's a good artifact set and warlord trait stuff, but he's not the tankiest of the Verminlords. The Deceiver's tankier. He's probably hits the softest, because he's just the glaive, whereas any other Verminlord that has a glaive also has another weapon. And so he falls short.
Yeah.
You're putting a lot of investment into something that just can't get the value out.
Yeah, like, and he went from re-rolling all his saves to +1 to his save. Like, ugh.
Which is something.
It's
I mean,
something.
save generally
not something
the
good,
Verminlords, when they have +2 will tank.
Yeah. Well,
but
give him +2
typically
then.
you can get there with Finest Hour anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Among other things. But anyway, I'm so disgusted with him. Can you James says, can you use the spell to bring the clan rats back? I'm not sure what
so this is Screech Vermin King's spell. He can only set up a new unit equal to the amount of damage that you dealt. It doesn't heal, but it summons. The nice thing about it, though, is it doesn't have to kill models to create clan rats.
Exactly.
It's just if it
That's
heals the damage.
Yeah.
So you can pop a hero and still get a unit out of it.
Usually, like with Bellarama, you have to actually kill something to spawn something.
And all Zeep spawn.
It's very unique. So another thing that Gel asked was, should you field 1 unit of 60 clan rats or 3 units of 20? You've kind of already answered that, because
The answer is 20 in this GHB. I want to try out 60 in the next one.
In the next one, for
Once Bounty
sure.
Hunters is gone, I am super excited to take 60s of Clan Rats. I want to see what that's like.
Completely with you.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Is Emerald Lifeswarm a good option in combination with 30 plus units?
The Emerald Lifeswarm, I've tried to fit it in less. I actually like it, the idea of it a lot with Warp Lightning Cannons, because you can heal them up after they've supercharged.
Interesting.
Or before they're about to supercharge.
Yeah.
But it's heals 1d3. It can be picked up by your opponent after it's been summoned to the turn, for the one turn that it came out in. And it's too expensive. I find I have to drop it in order to fit the things that I need in the list. So maybe if, again, once Bounty Hunters are gone, that means Storm Vermin can be good. And once Storm Vermin can be good, then regenning D3 models at a time. Maybe that's actually worth it.
Huh. I like it.
But until that point comes across,
yeah,
it's just not worth the points. It's just not.
Yeah, it really isn't. It used to be 60. It's still 60, and it went from healing twice when you put it down to healing once. It's like,
yeah, all the other endless spells got a huge buff in this GHB, and then that's the one that got completely opposite, just halved in its value.
Exactly. Okay. And then, what is your favorite competitive units? I think we've gone over that quite extensively because we went over your...
The giant rat is my favorite because it's just this tiny little rat. He's the tiniest little... It's got to be the smallest model in the game, the squishiest model in the game. No armor save, 1 wound, bravery 3. The teeniest little guy that's so easy to kill. And he just punches. I love the image of these teeny little giant rats walking up to a mega gargant and bringing it to half of its health, bringing it to its knees, or just outright killing like a vampire lord on zombie dragon. And you're like, why is this a thing? They're the tiniest little guys, and I just love them for it. It's amazing.
That's the secret lore. Like, you know how in the cartoons that elephants are always afraid of rats, right? It's because they remember the hordes of rats. They remember
Rend 2.
They remember Rend 2.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Someone asked if I'll find their name if I can. If our Legends units are still available for competitive play, do you think your list will change?
Yeah. So currently they aren't, but if they were to come back into play, there was some cool things that we lost in the Legend stuff. My main favorite one, I mean, Wolf Rats on their own would have been really helpful because a fast-moving screen would have been really nice for setting up shooting threats or mid-range shooting threats mid-board and still getting a screen guaranteed. Losing them would have been really does hurt. And then the one that I really would have liked is the Poison Wind Launcher weapons team. I loved those things when they were originally out, just as a thing that was a 9-inch or an 18-inch diameter bubble for keeping out deep strikers, something you can plop on an objective for minimal points investment that would still get value. It would still get just a free little shot here or there, ignores line of sight. You can threaten a hero with it. And so when that got knocked out of the game after 2.0 came out or the new book came out, I was sad to see them go. But those are my two favorites that I would have liked to stick around.
Fingers crossed they bring them back. We lost.
I am hoping that in the new Skaven book, whenever that might be, hopefully it's soon because ours was a little left behind.
Yeah.
They make the multi-part plastic weapons teams kit, where it's just these two bodies that you stick whatever weapons on them, and they can be anything. And if they were to do that, or like a Giselle/weapons team kit, they would put back the Poison Wind Globadier. That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh, the Poison Wind Mortar.
Poison Wind Mortar.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mortar. And then we would have that cool thing again because, like, clearly it's not some imbalanced thing in the game that they removed because it was too good.
Yeah.
It's still around in fantasy. It was around in fantasy. It's around in Total War.
Yeah.
It was removed just because the model couldn't be sold. So
what happened was they made a starter box set called Island of Blood, and it was on the sprue with other high elf stuff. So it just can't be separated. That's why we have old ugly rat ogres, because those ones were also
Hmm.
like, that whole kit was like that, right?
Yeah.
So it was very short-sighted of them, and this is why
Yeah.
we can't have nice
And my
things.
engineer's the Island of Blood engineer,
Yep,
and I love it. It's such a cool model. It looks so good,
I love him too.
but you can't get it.
I
Yeah, I
like the
had to get him
Bombardier
secondhand because
more.
I couldn't purchase them.
I like the Bombardier more, but yeah, I've got
Yeah,
him
the
too.
Bombardier's cool.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, and by the way, that question came from, and I'm sorry,
Yeah,
everyone's
giant rats with a rabbit. I love that.
the Monty Python rabbit. Yeah, that was great.
The Monty Python rabbit. That's
Yeah.
a great visual.
By the way, that question came from, I'm sorry, everyone's name is hard to pronounce apparently that asked a question tonight. I'm going to say Do Thun Long. And so, I'm sorry, I'm sure I butchered your name. My apologies. Okay, so then the next question we have is, I really like this one actually. What's Skaven's worst matchup?
Ooh. See, if you asked me before my last two tournaments, it
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have been Seraphon.
Yeah.
But after my last two tournaments where I only have lost to Seraphon,
It turns out it's Quaddle's Claw, apparently.
Coalesce Seraphon. I also played against my one loss in the P&W Masters was to Stark Pister and his Coalesce Seraphon, which is a nasty list. And
was it Thunder Lizard?
Oh, it was Thunder Lizard with the Cron Spine before they got their nerf.
Oh,
it was
right
wow.
it
bonked me good. It was nasty.
Okay.
But the -1 damage ruins the Seraphon in Coalesce in general. Hard counters the Deceiver. And I was hoping a lot that I wouldn't have to face it in the finals, because it loses out value in two ways. One, -1 damage puts your damage 3-2 or 2-1 if you don't get Flaming Weapon off, which means he's losing his damage output, so he's not a big threat anymore. And two, Slán will unbind board wide, or Croak will unbind board wide with a huge plus. So typically I would just backboard my Deceiver near the Nahul. I'll be way far out of doing anything, but I teleport. So I'll be out of unbind range and teleport in. The Slán or Croak will turn that off because he'll teleport unbind anyways. And then furthermore, they have big pluses to unbind. So I can't rely. I'd be lucky to get a single teleport off all game.
Wow.
And furthermore, he's going to unbind my Flaming Weapon board wide. So my damage 3 can't come out. Right. So I'm stuck at damage 1, no mobility. The only value he gets is from his Shadow Magnet Trinket running away, because I'm never going to be able to hit the Slán or something without Scaly Skin.
Well, also, if you're targeting a Stegodon, they get +1 to their save against him because they just pick him. So his value for his Ren 3 goes down to 2. That's less valuable. The other thing, there was one more thing actually. Oh, right. And I could be wrong about this, but the Deceiver's anti-shooting ability is just for anti-shooting, correct?
Yeah, he can't be targeted by missile weapons.
So Comet's Call, the Temple Zap, everything can hit him that's not outside of shooting.
And that's another thing.
Yeah.
Seraphon get bonuses against demons. Both the Bastiladon get +1 damage.
Yeah, right.
And Croak, instead of doing D3 mortals, does a flat 3 mortals against demons. So all the Verminlords that you always want to take in your list because they get so much value, they're always just going to get hurt so bad by those things.
Do Chameleon Skinks get extra stuff against?
No.
Okay.
They're just mortal wounds on 6s. Yeah.
On 6s. Okay. They used to back in the day. Okay.
So.
Wow. Yeah, I guess that's
they have a
the
lot.
Truth, huh? Yeah. I mean, I feel like Thunder Lizard is still better against your list than Quaddle's Claw, but admittedly I don't know enough about
either way, it's the Coalesce -1 damage.
Yeah, and the Slán.
That's really getting a lot of the work done. I find against Starborn Seraphon, actually, I have a perfectly fine time. I can use the Clan Rats to properly screen out his Salamanders from hitting my important things.
Right.
And then typically they have a Slán instead of Croak, so there's a decent chance that Thanquol will get his boat off. Right. And they also tend to run large skink units in Starborn because that's the shoot and run away.
So more damage or more value from his flamethrowers.
Yeah, he's just going to walk up and flamer things. And so against Starborn, it's way easier, but it's the Coalesce that really give Skaven grief.
Also, Starborn are lame because they're still just dreams, and Coalesced are like the cool lizards that
Give
are
me the real dinos.
Yeah, they're actually doing it. Yeah, I love Seraphon too, but nothing will overtake my love of Skaven. So, favorite.
I keep looking off this way.
What's that?
Because I'm addressing the chat when I look this way and I'm talking, and I forget there's a webcam that I'm supposed to be looking at because that's looking directly at the people.
I'm running a few different things here, so it's all good. Jax Teller asks, favorite grand strategy. This I actually was really curious about as well, and I wish I'd asked this.
Yeah, that's gonna for Skaven. It's for sure have more in your opponent's deployment than they do. I believe that's take what's theirs.
Take what's theirs, yep.
Because you can get gnaw-hole value. The gnaw-holes is what help you score that. You can get large numbers of units out, and you can clear things out. But the big thing is that I have a teleport, I have Laoshan, and I have a gnaw-hole. So a lot of the time, I can stick things in my opponent's deployment late game when I need to scramble to get my grand strat. It's also one of the win more strats where if you table your opponent, you just get it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Walk over. Yeah.
I like it.
I did take not that to this tournament, and that was one of the things that I did specifically because I knew I was playing against Zeech. Because Zeech was very good at summoning and keeping at least a hero alive. So they'll usually just summon something into their deployment near the end of the game to try and deny me the grand strat. And so instead, I had to switch out for No Place for the Weak, which is kill all of your opponent's starting battle line. And part of that was because I knew Caleb doesn't like to start with pinks on the board. He prefers to summon blues, which I learned in an AOS coach video. And so because of that, the free scouting, it's true. And so because of that, I knew I could take No Place for the Weak, kill whatever Kyric Acolyte, Screamers, or Zangor there might be.
That makes sense. This has nothing to do with Skaven, but Caleb seems like such a nice guy, and like I really enjoyed his AOS coach talk.
Him and his brother are so cool and fun to talk to, and I was so glad to meet all of these really good players.
He has a brother, hey? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Scooter. He got second place for best overall in the track.
Oh, cool. What?
His Iron Jumps.
That's so sick.
Yeah, so both of them, they both qualified for the Nova Open. Caleb qualified for both best overall and best general. They played each other on game 8 for Nova, the very final game. And so Caleb beat his brother Scooter, and so he qualified for both and went with best general. So that means his brother got best overall because he was the only other person to go that far.
What a good guy.
Only losing to his brother, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And by the way,
they're both very good.
Alex says he loves that you researched him using his guest appearance. You know what, though? People could have done that with you. They probably did. You were on here talking about
I had an entire review show with you and Vince. Yeah, I was on there.
Dude, you gave like the best tactics like I've ever heard. Like you obviously Vince was good too, but man, like you were on fire. Okay. The next question. I had one that's what is our objectively our best unit? I know you like like giant rats are the most, but do you think that they are objectively the best? Like
objectively the best unit?
Yes.
Thanquol. That's an easy answer.
Oh, duh. Yeah.
It's gotta be Thanquol.
Yeah.
In a meta where endless spells are good and we're coming back to like single spells that are really valuable, like Arcane Suggestion or Mind Razor, having even 2 unbinds at +3 or +4 is just so valuable. And then he has great melee threat, amazing answer to hordes that like so many other armies can't do.
Yeah.
Like Night Haunt, he's laughing.
Yeah. True.
And even against giants, he's still getting great value because you can go 2 and 2.
Right.
And then he still gets access to them Gracier lore with Death Frenzy or Skitterleap, which are both very important spells.
Yeah,
Particularly Death Frenzy because giant rats are garbage without it.
that's true. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yep, I agree. Great
He
pick.
does it all.
Yeah, I was still just on you, how much you love giant rats. So
My favorite is giant rats, but
oh,
Thanquol's objectively got to be the
I
best.
almost forgot to ask a very important question. Mason Knox says, "Can you ask Matthias,
Hey, Mason.
uh, where do you get off?"
I get off specifically squishing your little rats, Mason, with my own. I got so much happiness when he took Thanquol with 4x warp fire projectors, and I'm like, I want my Thanquol to punch your Thanquol to death just to prove you wrong. That's where I get off.
Hashtag humble, right? Right? I should
No,
have had that
good.
ready.
Yeah,
I
right.
should have had like a flashing hashtag
Most
humble.
humble person I know.
Dude, you are
Oh
normally,
yeah,
but that was hilarious. So
Mason is great. I love.
Mason
He's
is
got
fantastic.
such a great list. He is one of the people from the Pacific Northwest meta that I definitely have to be scared of dropping games to. It's just in the one time I played against him, he was playing Skaven against my Skaven. I'm like, great, I know exactly what you're gonna do. This unit can do this, and so I just deployed, and I basically won off of deployment.
Oh, cruel, cruel.
But if he brought his Beast of Chaos or Nurgle to that, ooh, that's a little bit of a tougher one.
That's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then
Love you, Mason.
oh, and then someone asked, what happens when all your warp lightning cannons blow up turn one? I actually responded to that and I said, I think I actually have more to offer on that subject.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't turn out because that's what you were talking about. Like, I'm assuming it was a joke question, but that is the redundancy of having three.
Yeah, I've
In a
never
nutshell.
had more than one actually blow itself up top of one.
Wow. Wow. You
But
cackle maniacally, obviously, Keith says. Exactly.
yeah, I've
Well
had
said.
them all whiff before. Like
Yes.
I've done like a combined like 3 or 4 mortals from one turn of all 3 of them even supercharging because they
Yeah.
rolled 5s and 6s. But the next turn they shoot again and then they pick up a monster in one go.
Absolutely.
So you get multiple rounds of shooting and they'll average themselves out.
And that question was from Gavin Woodrow, by the way, the blowing up.
Ah.
And then someone asked, "What's your thoughts?"
Yeah, you just
Yeah, exactly. What's your thoughts on the American meta versus the European meta, if you think that there is one?
Ooh.
And I'm not sure what they mean by the end there. I'm adding, I'm asking the full question, but
So there's for sure a difference between the two.
there is, yeah.
I can't say I have a huge experience with European meta, UK and France, Spain, the Danes. A lot of the teams that you see in US or in the AOS worlds.
Yep.
I've only played some games against people from across the pond, but the US, to be fair, actually has quite a varied meta depending on their regions. Like Texas and the southern US states kind of play very offensively, very heavy hitting.
Like here.
They have like Marathi, 9x Storm Fiends, these big mega units that can run around and punching things. They also have stronger presence net listing down there, I think.
Oh.
I think you see a lot more net lists from there. The Pacific Northwest, how would I characterize the Pacific Northwest meta? I think we have more creativity. And that's just like if you look at the top players, myself who wants to avoid taking the really common things like Storm Fiends, Dale who really wants to avoid taking the common, like he doesn't touch Marathi, right?
Dale will not touch Marathi. He wasn't playing.
He does well without Marathi.
He wasn't. Yeah, he does incredibly well without Marathi. He won best overall at LVO 2019. 4-1. Yeah.
Yeah, 4-1 with Gets.
4-1 with Gets, twice in a row.
No Kronspine, no Kragnos.
No Kragnos.
Kragnos, that's his name.
Yeah, no Purple Sun
no
when it was
spells.
it was the stuff. Yeah, no, Dale's incredible
and then
at that.
Matt Beasley,
yeah.
all sorts of different chaos lists. Like Tzeentch, he doesn't take a Kronspine Tzeentch list. Like I haven't seen other people taking his Tzeentch lists. To be fair, his Slanesh lists are pretty similar to everyone, but that's just because the only good Tzeentch list is Lurid Haze, Sigvald, and Archers.
But we should point out, like, Matt Beasley has been winning for a very long time. Even before Age of Sigmar, he was winning in Fantasy. One of the strongest players out there, like creative.
Him and Dale have been winning for a while,
a long time. People underestimate them at their peril. Like, honestly, if you do underestimate Dale or Matt, you're not paying attention. Yeah.
Yeah. So as much as it might feel a little bit like self tooting my own horn, I do feel like the PNW meta is a little more creative.
We actually do have
a really have its fair share of good net lists.
I like to make jokes because we have Alex here. We always have someone who's playing something literally as aggressive as the game allows, like just
right,
all in. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like a lot of local players point out and notice, and I'm not one of them, to be clear. I don't really pay attention to the metas from other areas because, it doesn't affect me. But a lot of people point out that, like, certain regions like the UK tend to lack screens and chaff, like, more than other regions, right? So
I think they prefer taking harder tanky units over screens, like just from my own experience.
But
Bill Marshall, who won best overall,
absolutely,
he had this 12 Varangard list.
It's true, and like Eric does that too. He's taking these crazy Slaves to Darkness lists where it's like, I didn't even go for his Chaos Warriors because I knew there was no point because I was never going to kill them. But but he Alex will often top of one, baby, 2-turn Butler. That's him. Like, with Alex, and there are a few other people out there, but Alex is definitely a main person. You can't not have chaff. Like, your Anvil unit, cool story, bro. It's gone. Alex will delete that thing. He will absolutely guaranteed delete that thing. That's what he does. Yeah, he murdered the Chaos Warriors that I literally couldn't. There's nothing in my army that could have taken those guys out. So, so yeah. Anyway, but like, so we make jokes about our local meta being very aggressive. It's a lot of it's just Alex, but it actually is quite varied. We have a lot of hipsters locally.
yeah. Which Seattle, you know what? Seattle, Vancouver, that kind of tracks.
Yeah, it's a coffee shop. They're both coffee shop cities, so a lot of hipsters. Yeah.
I feel like Mason's lists also a very good player from here. He likes, from just guessing from it, because I've only played against him once, he makes a lot of lists that asks a specific question. Beasts of Chaos is a very specific requirement in order to answer it. Mass Beast of Nurgle is kind of a specific question asked. His Skaven was a very good Alpha Strike that asked, can you survive the Alpha Strike?
And I mean,
right?
Mass Beasts of Nurgle? Who's playing that? Like, I've never heard of anyone playing that.
Never. It was a pretty popular thing when it came out, and then flies shot up, and now that was a thing everybody was talking about. And then people figured out spam flies and you win. So then flies became a thing, and he played the Alpha Flies list, but with a little twist of adding Be'lakor, right? So it asked the question of, can you beat flies whilst getting Be'lakor on the swing back?
Wow, love it. Oh wow, yeah. Mason is also a very nice guy, so that's cool. Which was the best and worst performing unit in his list? That's actually a different question than we've had so far. Yeah. Best
performing. It would have to be the Deceiver is the best performing.
Oh, Deceiver? Fair, yeah.
The Deceiver, because Thanquol did his job very well.
Yeah.
But the Deceiver, like in my game against Matt Sweeney's Stormcast, he was able to stop the Fulminators without ever having to fight them. He was the one that he took out his enemy, took out the general. He gave me a lot of safety going into Gavin Greigar's Daughters of Cain, because I can always just run away, and he still has enough output to pick up 9 snakes on average.
Wow.
So he's...
Jeez.
his threat that he provided, his damage output he provided, and his mobility and his tankiness, he was firing on all cylinders, putting out any fires, putting threats on everything.
Yep.
He had to be the most valuable because Thanquol gave me nothing during both of my games against Dean Bills. He got his Comet's calls off on such big rolls, and Thanquol couldn't keep up with it. He rolled shit. And then when he went to co-cast his spells, he rolled shit again and got unbound by the stupid plan. So Thanquol failed me. Deceiver easily got more value than
set you
Thanquol.
off. You know what though? I love how absolutely lore appropriate that is. It's just Thanquol goes out and fails and then survives. That's what he does.
Yeah, he did live a lot.
So he was the worst performing unit?
No, my least performing unit was the Master Molder.
That's what I was going to guess.
And that's not entirely the fault of the Master Molder.
Yeah.
Because he still did his job. He
Yeah.
made the Giant Rat battle line, which
Yeah.
makes them easy to kill and
That's
makes
true.
them double reinforceable.
Yep.
So, and then his whip just happens. He whips the unit for +1 to wound, +3 to charge and run. That he did that. And there was a few corner cases where they ran too far out and I wasn't able to reapply the whip. Especially when you rocket them in and they don't actually die for some reason. So he didn't even get his whip off all the time. But the big thing was the 3-up revive. I accidentally, several times that tournament, forgot to set aside a CP to bring back the giant rats. And so they just didn't come back. And the giant rats still got value, even if they weren't going to revive. But that means the Master Molder wasn't getting his value that I needed him to.
I see.
And so, yeah, he wasn't getting the whip off 100%, and then I got 1 revive off the entire tournament.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that it's a 3-up is, more likely than not, but it can still just not go your way. That was, I forget who. Okay, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop him because of that, because he was still. I need him to make the giant rats the battle line, and I need him for the whip.
Got it.
But
that was S by Stefano DeSeo, by the way. And before I lose this person's name, Randolph Stearman asks, if you had to play just one clan, this is a fun one, what would it be?
You're making me decide on a clan, but I love the mixed clans. They have so much value.
Me too, and I never would do this unless I was forced to. But I think you would pick Pestilence.
I don't mind Pestilence, although I don't like how one trick they are. They're pure melee, that's it.
Well, they also have the Great Plagues, especially if you have like,
if we're talking competitive and I had to pick one, it would be Scryer, because they can at least do shooting and melee and casting.
What do they
but
do
if I
melee?
just had to pick one, Stormfiends.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, what do you mean I guess?
They're okay.
Doomflayer gauntlets are 2d3 attacks on possible 2-up, rend 2, damage d3.
Yeah, but if
they get value.
If you're taking, yeah, but then you only get 2 of them in a unit of 6. So.
Yeah, but at least they have good melee as well as shooting as well as casting. Like no other clan does all of it.
If you were to take Scryer, would you take multiple units of Stormfiends?
Ooh, if I had to stick with pure Scryer?
Yeah.
No. They need more warp power too much for their value.
But then you could take
not a
warp fire
not a
throwers,
bad idea.
And then just a unit of 3.
No, I would rather take Rattling guns.
Fair enough.
Even in side units, just because they can still get +1 damage, because I can pick up to 3 targets for +1 damage. So still take Rattling guns.
Oh, I see.
Win
well, but the warp fire thrower goes on the mortar one, so you wouldn't be sacrificing.
Oh yes, for the mortars.
Yeah.
But the mortar
it's
still
+1. It's D3 +1 damage or whatever.
Maybe you do warp grinder fists and the warp fire throwers so that you can do it, but the warp fire throwers and the Stormfiends are so inefficient.
Yeah.
They're so inefficient.
They're not great. I like that. I like that question.
If I had to choose one for not competitive, it would be Molder.
Molder, yeah.
Because Rat Ogres are Because it has a
Not
good
bad.
variance. It has the Hell Pit, it has the the Rat Ogres, and the Giant Rats. So you got the layers of like different unit sizes. Has a bit of shooting. It has the good damage. It has good tankiness.
Yeah.
So like in a tournament, I think Scryer would be best, but like in general, I would like Molder for all the things they can do.
Mulder also doesn't have spell casting or prayers, so yeah,
Right.
it's kind of a tough one. Um, okay, obviously how his list works, we did explain that. Most Skaven players, for example, only go 2 times 20 clan rats, assuming the approach is to flood the board and bog down the opponent while the cannons do the work. That was a question from Twitter, and I don't know if I can find it.
Yeah, well, like I said, 3 clan rats you generally want. I generally want 3 because I want some to still be alive after screening to score objectives afterwards.
Yeah.
And it means I can't go low drop, but that's fine. I'll get benefits from that elsewhere.
Right.
They do protect the cannons against very aggressive armies like Ironjaws or a Marathi with a Death Wish.
Right.
And so the clan rats are definitely doing that job. But generally, if my opponent was so hellbent as to hit my cannons, I'm not putting all of my clan rats in the way. You can have those cannons if you're going to work that hard to kill them. You probably have to get through 1 unit of clan rats to do it. But I'd rather keep those 2 units of clan rats alive than try and keep the cannons alive because I need them for scoring.
Right. And so are they kind of in your other units of clan rats, are they kind of on the sides of the board normally, or are they like teleporting from gnaw holes, or
They're on the back. They're behind the cannons.
Right. That also stops
Just
people
little
from
bumps.
teleporting
Sometimes
in.
they're to the side. Yeah. Sometimes they're additional screens, like they're fully splayed out as a screen in the back. Sometimes they're screening out flanks. Sometimes because they can't kill all the screens at once. And sometimes they're just like bunched up in a tiny little ball behind everything, trying to preserve themselves.
That makes sense. That sounds like them too.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Okay. Now before I ask, like some winding down questions, is there anything that I've missed or not, or we haven't thought of to ask? Like why
Mm-hmm.
why you think you've been quite consistent with Skaven, and you know what I mean? Like, is there anything you wanna kind of give in terms of advice?
Well, I mean, the reason I stick with Conrad or Skaven a lot is because OBR isn't good right now, and also I just love like saying rats. I just love playing rats, running around with rats. It's just fun.
They are honestly they are the most fun, and yeah, if I had to pick one
Mm-hmm.
army, I mean, like Skaven are my favorite. They're the reason I got back into wargaming, but
Mm-hmm.
still, like it's just they're so much fun to play. But like yeah, and I guess we'll look forward to you playing OBR as well when they get a
Mm-hmm.
book. I'm sure you're looking forward to some variety, even as much as you love Skaven, and you really do love Skaven. Like I had some before Skaven got a book. I had a bunch of dice made up, and you were the only other person locally that went in with me just to have. They weren't the Skaven symbol, by the way. I didn't do any copyrighted
Yeah.
stuff, but like I just got like some Skaven-y dice made up. um, and Matthias was one of the few people to go in with
Mm-hmm.
that. Surely OBR are one of the 2 death battle tomes.
It's
They have to be. They
it's
have to
gotta be.
Yeah.
Un- Unless they're making a new Death Army,
Even if they
they do
are, dude,
that.
OBR are so popular. Like FEC are cool and everything, but there's no way that it's FEC
Yeah.
and a new battle tome. Like all, all the OBR players will just be like, just rip all their hair.
I don't know. Just look at Gits right now.
Oh,
Just look
dude.
at Gits right now. They're like new destruction tome, and they're like, oh, it's got to be Gits, and it's like, nope, it's giants.
Like
Cool.
what? Never got a white
What?
dwarf thing. Never got what do you call them? Like grand strategies or only book that.
Yeah, they never got any.
Yeah. Oh man, that was
Yeah.
hilarious. Um,
In terms of actual advice for Skaven, though,
please.
in terms of list building, I would say there's a lot of value in not going onto a Skaven chat and listening to what people say, oh, this is the best, take this.
So true.
Because Skaven is so varied and wild, and a lot of things actually are pretty good if you give them enough support or give them enough light of day, that just trying out things and coming up with these little teeny combos that, like, some of you in the chat have been really excited to bring up, like, deep striking and charging in with doom flayers or warp fire throwers, or taking 60-man units of clan rats and throwing up, just dumping a bunch of weapons teams in them, or building around rat ogres. There's all these different things you can do, and so many different, not even having to create an entirely new list idea, but just little synergies that you can try, like giant rats and bounty hunters. Just a simple thing like that, like, that's where you can get a lot of power in Skaven, because not everybody has seen that or knows how to play against it, and it gives you a real edge being unknown, and also, makes it feel more special because it's a little more unique. And so there's something to be said about just trying things and just seeing how it goes without having to entirely net list.
I mean, honestly, that is I was actually going to ask you, what's your like general advice for like other people other than Skaven players? I actually think that fits both of those things, because like, I remember when this first Skaven book came out, like people were talking like, oh, hell pit abominations are the bee's knees, and I was going like, what? You know what I mean? 5-up save, 12 wounds, like,
yeah.
Like, I was like, I wanted to try them, and yeah, when they do happen to get in, they can really do some work, but most of the time the person recognizes the threat and eliminates them. One of my ideas, when you were talking about like iterating, I had this idea. I haven't tried it out yet because I don't have them painted, but I wanted to do on the channel 2 units of 60 clan rats. Right now, even with GV, I don't care, right? And a master clan in the middle, making them all bravery 10, and then they're just hard to kill off, And that's 600 points. But you're on your 60 wounds and bravery 10, bringing back, D3 per battle shock phase, like, but
I like it. Yeah.
I don't have them painted, and they have to be painted to be played on the channel. Otherwise, the YouTube gods will zap me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually not true, but I just try not to do that. Like, I don't think we've ever played. The worst we've ever done is not based, but that's not that big a deal.
And yeah, for general, you can take that advice in general. Some other armies aren't as free in just trying out little mix and matches, because Skaven isn't beholden to sub factions.
That's true.
It wants to be all in one faction, or at least they tried to make it all mixed, making you go for one.
Yeah.
Or going for like 3 of a clan hero to get the bonus, but because all of those bonuses are bad, you're actually not really beholden to anything. So you can really, it's a real Cities of Sigmar kind of feel to it.
Actually, and there is one that's good. There's one that's good, and it's the Pestilence one that you brought up.
Yes, the Pestilence one is actually, but you don't actually need 3 heroes to get the Pestilence one.
No.
So it's like a single hero is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, other armies that have sub-factions that kind of dictate your list building more. The major one that comes to mind is Idoneth Deepkin, but like, there's all kinds of them. Like, you can take the sub-faction that people aren't taking, or you can do things like take a sub-faction like Nautilor and hey, just 1 turtle. You don't have to build super heavily into it.
Yeah, I do it myself.
Like, if all it takes is 1 turtle to just like completely shift how your list design works, you don't have to get maximum value out of that sub-faction just to feel okay that you're taking that sub-faction. So you can be, you got to be a little more willing to take things that might seem less maximum value, but might unexpectedly get value elsewhere where you weren't thinking that it would.
Yeah, I actually fell into that trap myself, because I was playing Nautilor, because like, even if you don't have more than 1 turtle, like, honestly, you probably don't even want it, but it fills a slot. You can put it in bounty hunters. You can do all these fun things,
Hmm.
and then you get access to the monstrous action. The one where I fell into the trap though until recently was Futhin, where you get the sharks for battle line. Because I only have two painted sharks, and I was just like, this isn't gonna feel very like I'm not feel like I'm getting my value out of it. But then, right? You can, yeah.
Yeah, even
Uh,
a little value can be a lot of value.
Exactly, and I actually got a decent amount of value because they have their own special ability where they can be get triple, like what do you call it?
Mhm.
Like double
Oh, this
exploding sixes if they're near another shark in Futhin.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, the Fuethon. I think
yeah.
it's Fuethon
Is it? I don't
because
know.
I
I
and the reasoning is I heard this on Garage Hammer
okay.
because it's the one based in Akshi, so they're Realm of Fire based,
Yeah.
and so it's supposed to be Fuego, which is Spanish for fire, right? So that's why it's Fuethon.
Oh, Fuego Fuethon. Oh, I like it. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I heard, and that's what I'm sticking to. I believe that too.
I just so when they came out with it, um,
Hmm.
there was a bunch of like their internal there's no internal consistency in terms of how things are spelled in Idoneth Deepkin and how they are pronounced. Like everyone thought it was going
Oh
to
yeah.
be yeah, like everyone before we got an official thing from GW when they just showed it, everyone was going it's going to be Edenith Deepkin. It sounds more elvish and
Right.
it fell in line with these other things and they're just like no, it's Idoneth and it's like oh okay well
All
so
right.
I kind of gave up. My favorite was always Dom Hain, the fighty monster
Hmm.
guys. But yeah, Alex says I don't think any Englishman can speak languages. Folks, Alex is from England. I read it
He's
out
got deep
before I
experience.
should have read what he's writing, so I'm gonna do that. So he just says I think it's accidental. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a decent chance.
I mean, whenever you're just making stuff up, people
Mhm.
like I'm really into languages, so like not everyone's gonna think about it. You know what I mean? Like how they're spelling it. They're not gonna like
Mhm.
be a token and really map out the entire language before they do these things.
Right.
So I get it, but yeah. So okay. Uh, Final thoughts, Matthias? Anything you want to add?
I mean, I'm still finding other things to do that seem pretty good to me with
It's a
Skaven
deep
in
book.
general. So I'd say just because this list is really good
Yeah.
and does a lot of things really well doesn't mean that it's the end all be all. Like you can keep looking around.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm going to, I think your what's the word? Uh like your not your mission statement, but your kind of your methodology is very inspiring and it's very it really points to the fact that just you don't have to like you it's not only do you not have to net list, it's not in your best interest to being a better player in the long run. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why you've done so well is because you're constantly iterating, constantly looking at it in a sort
Mhm.
of scientific way where you're basing it on and and I don't think you just like you try something out once either, right? Like you don't just try
Mhm.
something out once and you're just like oh it didn't work in that game so out the window
I
it
try
goes,
not to,
right? Yeah, I
but
mean
sometimes you do, right?
yeah, it's true. I mean
If
everyone
something's
yeah.
so bad, like when I tried out the Screaming Bell, I tried it once, and I'm like, no, I'm not giving this another chance. No.
You know what though? Like I want to make the screaming bell work too, and it worked in our game, right? Just not in the way that.
Did it though, or was it those cannons that did it? And you
Yeah,
just were like, oh, this is great. Oh, it did everything.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, it is +2 to cast, right? Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
and
there's something there.
so like
There's
with endless
something.
spells, if you can't quite fit Thanquol in there and you want to take some other stuff, like that's I mean, if I'm being honest, I took it because I love the Screaming Bell model.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the bell is one good buff away from being really good.
yeah.
The one I really want them to do is give it a 4-up rally AoE. because then the
Oh.
furnace is AoE battle shock immunity, then the bell is AoE 4-up rally. And then it's like,
Oh.
okay, now there's a little niche that it fills. And like it can be
Totally.
garbage on that with whatever the hell it's going on currently.
Wow.
But now it's actually, now it has a big reason to be taken. And then like, you know, hordes of clan rats or storm vermin is suddenly good.
Wow.
It's like, okay.
I mean, it'll never happen, but I love it so much that like
Right.
I mean, maybe in the like if we get a line revamp and there's like a proper, they give a proper look at our book, you know.
Mhm.
I don't think we're gonna
Right.
we're gonna see any major updates. I mean, honestly, if it came down to like 250, I could take it at that, you know, just
Yeah,
for the plus
actually,
to
yeah.
cast.
It goes down in points.
Yeah, but
Yeah, then it's a good just casting point.
right. I like that Alex says. I like that Matthias is showing, tells us that even the books that seem to have been all scoped out can still be explored and surprised. Yeah, absolutely. And he said "yoy" at the end. I think he meant "yay," but I could be wrong.
No, and surprise you.
Oh, surprise you! Got it. I was like, I don't really get what he means by like.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
By boy.
Main downfall notice when playing the Screaming Bell is that it's still got the needed to push me rule. Daughters don't have it. I'm gonna complain about that until they change one of them. like I'll just be a crab and I'll just bring all the daughters players down with us, or give us where we don't have to push it. I feel like I've said this before, like the rat ogre should be able to like Fred Flintstone, you know, the side of the bell with his super long arms, you know. But Matthias speaks typo. What?
I do.
Oh,
I can figure out what people are saying.
God dang. I clearly don't. And I make typos all the time because I love to voice type. The Chris box, maybe the ball will get an update. They've never done that before. I mean, I love where your head's at, Romulan Dog. I really love I'm an optimistic person myself, and every time we get a Skaven book, I'm like, new models are coming. You guys I know it's to be true, but yeah.
That is pure unadulterated copium. I will say.
It's true.
It is pure unadulterated copium, but boy, do I really want that to be true. That they just send out a white dwarf or the battle scroll or something that makes it good, and then they just, even if it's purely so they can sell more models, I'd be happy.
It's so
I'd
true.
be okay with
and
it.
You know what? Yeah, me too, actually. And I mean, I don't think they will, just because like they just had it in the Sylvaneth box and now we've got it in another box. It's just like we've got too many of these things.
Yeah, they're desperately trying to sell that stuff.
Take it and go, you know. But yeah, I mean, I love hopium. Like I'm a big pusher of that drug.
You got tanks of it in your back room.
Oh man, you should have seen me in the Skaven WhatsApp group before they put that nail in the coffin that we weren't getting any new models. I was just like, I can feel it, guys. I can feel it. Like, why would they do this? Why on earth would they come out with a new book if they weren't going to have any new models? This happened last time Seraphon got a book too. I was like, absolutely. And I was theorizing about like what we were going to get, like some kind of weird Brontosaurus like troop carrier and like all these other things. And no.
Rob has as much crazy outlandish hope as a doomsday sayer has. And it's like, as soon as the day comes and it doesn't happen, immediately the next day you're like, oh, well, that's just because they're going to come out with a new book soon and then they're going to actually have the new models.
Yeah. I literally have the confidence of like a Skaven Doomwheel driver who's just like, what could go wrong? As long as I go as fast as possible and overcharge every time, nothing could go wrong.
Yeah.
I have that level of confidence.
Keith is right.
I have Skaven levels of confidence.
Skaven's unit selection goes so deep that like I was going to be happy with the new book regardless, because I know that Skaven's book goes so deep with so many different things that something's going to become good. And Plague Monk Censor Bearers got really good.
They got really good. Rat Ogres went from trash to really good.
Yeah,
Um,
giant rats are still. They switched from being a super cheap pick to a really heavy hitting pick.
yep. And Plague Priests got better.
Ends by the price. Yeah,
Yep.
cannons are actually competitive now.
Master Molders got really good with the
Mm-hmm.
recycling of large units of giant rats and rat ogres.
Auto
Um,
take with other molder things.
yeah, yeah. There's others. Some surprising things, or actually, well, the Warbringer I kind of figured was going to be good, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised that like because the Deceiver was one of the best ones before. I was surprised that he stayed like good.
Right.
I think they tried to nerf him like in secret, but they just they just didn't see the great math, right?
Yeah.
Like Matthias the Slan did. He's
Yeah.
just like I can calculate down from.
Don't you dare call me a Seraphon. I the one army that beats me. I hate those dang
Yeah.
lizards. Screw them.
But I just like saying that you understand the great math because that's one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
Seraphon things. Favorite
Yeah.
Skaven model. Oh, and why is it the Grace here on Screaming Bell? I was gonna say that earlier. Actually, the Screaming Bell is such a unique unit. Like it's not riding some kind of monster. It's riding a giant platform with a bell on it. And
Yeah.
have you seen that meme that's it says like it says the Screaming Bell. It's been around forever, and it's a picture of the Screaming Bell in like a really old video game, not Total War, like way before Total War. And it says Screaming Bell.
Mhm.
It makes a sound worse than Rickroll, Britney Spears, and Yoko Ono combined. And then it says, "Yep, it'll kill ya."
That is such a 2000s meme. Oh my
It was
god.
so great though. Like, oh man, I actually saved it. I literally saved it on every
Yeah.
phone. Um,
The Plague
uh,
Claw Catapult got nothing. But not everybody could become good.
that's true. Yeah, that was so crazy. I was like, they're gonna be like the best thing in the book because they've always been the worst. Um,
Mm-hmm.
best Skaven model, I think, has got to be the Verminlords.
My favorite singular model,
Yeah.
if I could choose a unit, I think it would be Slink Skittershank's Claw Pack. My favorite one, I
Oh,
think,
a
is the
unit.
unit champion from his Claw Pack. The one that's like on the puff of smoke coming down.
He is the best part. I actually do like the superhero on the pipe of
Mm-hmm.
Skittershank himself. And the new assassin is fire.
Oh, the new Deathmaster.
Love the new Deathmaster. He's so cool. But like, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to compare like a little assassin with a freaking Verminlord. You know what I mean? Like it's a centerpiece. One's a
Yeah.
centerpiece and one is not.
I mean, the Vermin Lord's super cool, and I like my favorite one would be Screech because I love the horns and everything.
Yeah.
But I liked the dynamicism that the Slink, Skittershank, and his Claw Pack have because like a Vermin Lord, and it's my opinion, so it's completely fair. The Vermin Lord, you when you take multiples or own multiples, they're always the same pose, and but just by that fact alone, it makes it a little more not as cool,
That's fair. I
not
mean,
not as cool as Slink.
I have three Vermin Lords and they're all posed differently. So I have the
Mm-hmm.
Deceiver who's got the stiletto and the throwing star, and he's got his own thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I've got the Warp Seer, which I think is actually my favorite one, and he's got his crystal ball and the staff, right?
Well, it's just their arms. They're still one leg is straight, one is
Oh, I see. Have you
up a
seen that
bit,
guy who
and then
posed it
there's
on the side of
still
a building
straight
though?
up. Oh, there's so.
Oh
I mean,
man.
there's so many cool things when you can
Yeah,
Nagashes. There's all the different kinds of Nagashes, and then the Vermin Lords, and yeah.
that's
If
true.
you're that good at it, then yeah, poses aren't an issue anymore.
But I mean, like, also it's like a single unit, like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, you're picking one unit. My favorite is the Master Clan guy, right? And then what do you call it? Like, you compare him to Skittershank's Claw Pack. I actually think Skittershank's Claw Pack is the coolest. Like, I think that's the best designed, but it's also, it's the newest
Mm-hmm.
one as well. So there's
Yeah,
something to be said for that. I mean, it could keep our minds busy for ages talking about which is the
yeah,
coolest Skaven model. Screaming Bell's up there.
yeah.
Thanquol's awesome. There's lots of good picks. I like them all except for The old clan rats and a few of the really, really derpy looking models.
Rat ogres.
Yeah, the old. Sorry, no, I didn't mean to say clan rats. I meant to say rat ogres. Yeah, virtually. Yeah, that's I didn't. um, but
Mm-hmm.
I've got the old
Yeah, the
engineers,
trio
but they're kind of.
too.
Oh, the Doom wheels. Oh, the Doom wheels are so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Doom wheels are awesome. Great pick, Matthias. Thank you so much for
Mm,
coming on. It's a.
absolutely.
This might be the longest one ever. I'm not sure. So congrats.
Just an hour 37 minutes or 2 hours 37 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So, uh, really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you for sharing. Like, oh,
Sure.
this is some of the best advice we've ever had. Um, you don't have any. You don't do social media.
No, but I do want to shout out Dale Johnson, the co-host for this podcast,
Yeah,
for all the things he's been able to enable for me. I'm so appreciative of him. He's a super competitive player, so he's great for list advice. He's great for talking to about Warhammer. He's also just a really cool guy in general that I love talking to. And he's literally drove out to every single tournament other than the one that I got paid to fly out to, that had my flights paid for. I was only ever able to go to because he was going to be driving there. And I was able to carpool with him. So, like, literally, the only reason I'm on the map at all is all because of Dale. So I have so much to be thankful for because of him. And
that's sweet, and
I'll
that's
be sticking with him in the future, yeah, for any further tournaments, probably.
Dale is a great person to talk to about. It would be great to have you and him and me.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to hear what I have to say, and
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and maybe Matt Beasley. You guys are kind of the triumvirate, and I can just be the talking head that just asks stupid questions, and maybe we could do like just a competitive list building discussion at some point. Um,
Yeah.
that sounds good. Uh, Shout outs to Dale. Absolutely. Yeah, he's a
Mm-hmm.
real sweetheart, and it was nice of him to drive you down there. And also shout outs to Eric Robtons and who else did you get Nurgle models from?
Oh, and then my friend Chris Cesaris.
Chris Cesaris. Shout outs to them too.
Mhm.
That's what we appreciate about them.
Yeah,
And
for piecing together my qualifying army. That's
yeah,
also very important. Good call.
I
That's super
I,
important.
I remember at the time, so Matthias, I'm going to make myself look like a jerk, but Matthias asked if he could borrow my Warp Now Verminlord, and I was like, I'm sorry, man. This is the one model, it costs so much from Forge World. It's one of a couple models that I own from Forge World that I didn't buy used
Yeah,
or from whatever, right? And
yeah.
that model is so spindly, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not good about lending models. Like I do it occasionally. Like I lent some stuff to Eric and whatnot,
Mhm.
but when they lent you those models, I was just like, man, like yeah, like what good guys. So I definitely wanted to shout them
Mhm.
out. And of course, shout outs to Dale. If you want, you can follow Dale on Twitter. It's on the screen at the bottom of the right of the screen, twitter.com/chumphammer. Um,
Yeah.
Follow him on there and ask him questions about what the best units are and why it is not Marathi. Um,
And ask him about why he's so much better at the game than me.
yeah,
I'm sure he has plenty of
ask him.
reasons.
Yeah, and you can put me or
Most of
Matthias,
them true.
yeah, or whoever you want in there, and he'll give you a good reason. Yeah, why he's better than
Mhm.
whatever. You can just put X. Dale, why are you better than X? And he'll tell you something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You'll always get some kind of great answer out of
You'll
that.
get something out of Dale, that's for sure. No, he's a great guy, and we'll look forward to having him on again or come returning, hopefully next week. Next week is going to be Alex, at least as scheduled. Hopefully nothing goes wrong like almost did tonight with me. Um, He'll be on talking about ogres, the new Ogre Maw Tribes book. Alex is another very competitive person, a really good person to talk to about list building.
Get a lot
And
of practice playing him.
yes, he's
You
he's
learn a
fan-
lot.
he's really is, and like Alex was like 4-1 at I forget how many of the first tournaments he went to. Like every tournament he went to, he went 4-1, and he wasn't even bringing meta stuff. So Yeah, he'll be on. He's scheduled to be on next week, so I'm looking forward to that. Matthias,
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
One of my this is I had so much fun.
It's been
So
great. Yeah.
yeah, and thanks to all the people who showed up. I'm sorry, I really appreciate the people who stuck with us this whole time. We had a lot of people in here earlier, but yeah, thanks everyone for
Mhm.
watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye bye.